Yeah, Silpa, go ahead.
Yes, sir. A very good morning to everyone. I hope I'm audible to all. First of all, before we begin the session, let me apologize due to some technical issues. We are running late for the session. But again, a very good morning. For today's session, this is Shilpa this side, your co-host for today's class. On behalf of Core HR IR, I welcome all the participants, members of Core HR IR, and the facilitator for the day, Mr. Prashant Srivastav. Before we begin with today's class, let me introduce to Core HR IR Group. So this is about us. So let me introduce you to the group. So the objective of Core HR IR is to be a credible global HR network in the world. About us, we are a group of 1,200 HR experts all over the world. These experts include HR leaders, CHROs, and HR minds all over the world. We believe that leaders in HR are like classical musicians in an orchestra. They make your life better by being in it. We believe that if we network, we will be able to harness the wisdom of all the HRs in the world. We believe in knowledge sharing. That's why we have created this platform so that we can gain support, offer advice, and progress every individual's career to the next level. And of course, we are certification partner of HRCI USA as well. Here, you can see the core team members of HRC of the group. I would request the participants to mute. Okay, we can also see the members of the core HR IR, which are from the top A-class companies. Here you can see companies like Acer, Kodak, Lenovo, Philips, and so many big brands to name. So let me take you to the journey of Core HRIR. We formed in the year 2017 with the vision to be a global HR network. And in the year 2017, we started with a series used to discuss trending topics like AI, HR analytics, talent development, organizational development, and much more. This series advanced to the Learning Weekend series in the year 2018. We also organized Shining HR Award to recognize young HR professionals. We also started job board for career opportunities for the coming HR professionals. In the year 2019, we collaborated with HRCI USA. And then we launched Apex Center Singapore in the year 2020. So this is the journey of Core HR Group. Here you can have glimpse of the Chai Buddy series. Here you can see the leaders from HR domains giving their and sharing their expertise. So this is our social presence in different social media platforms like YouTube, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Here are the coordinates for all the social media platforms. Feel free to connect with us. So in the coming path ahead, we are with different objectives in our mind, wherein we would love to do professional tie-ups to increase and the learning and the growth. We want to increase the members across the country. We want to increase the job board for the job opportunities for the young HR freshers, and also the podcasts are the new trend. So we want to really get into podcasts to address the HR challenges. So these are the vision for the group ahead. Thank you for patient listening. This is all about the HRIR group. Now let me introduce you to the facilitator of the session. Mr. Prashant Srivastav. He's the founder and CEO of the Other Two-Thirds Consulting. At present, he's helping CHROs to be the business driver in the business driver seat. His laser sharp inferences from the matter model and from the AI and machine learning driven algorithms enable CHROs to take precise actions that can improve business performance in 2 quarters. Previously, he worked as CEO of Gallup India, partner engagement and culture at Aon Hewitt, which is a Fortune 500 company, and group CHRO of a very large Indian conglomerate that is Reliance Group. Mr. Prashant Srivastav is an IIFA alumnus and has set up the Other Two-Thirds Consulting to elevate human life and impact business growth. In the past 2 decades, he has carried out significant research in employee engagement and well-being, leveraging his work with 250 large Indian and foreign transnational clients. He has worked with 2000 plus survey results and correlated the outcome with leadership and manager behaviors, talent priorities, and business outcomes. The body of the work has resulted in VMatter, the only model focused on Gen Y, Gen Z, besides Gen X, that can help transform the business. He has leveraged algorithms, AI, and machine learning to predict attrition and performance at team level. The unique combination of strategy and HR consulting stints in the past 3 decades has helped Prashant Sir develop this insight and unique models. Currently, he is authoring a book named The Other Two-Thirds. I welcome you, Prashant Sir, for today's session. And I request you to take the session ahead.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Good morning, Prashant Sir.
Very good morning.
Good morning. Good morning to
Good morning. Good
and,
morning.
Thank you very much for sparing time to on a weekend, on a Saturday morning, taking time out from your personal time, family time, etc. It's a pleasure to be with all of you, and let's see how we can make sure that the next 4 hours are effectively utilized, and all of us end up gaining from the next 4 hours. The topic for today, as you all know, is employee engagement, and how do you drive employee retention and business growth through employee engagement. What I would like to do is as follows. Instead of, while I have prepared a presentation and all of that and everything else, but I can modify things as we go and as we move, because what's not important is what I want to tell you. What's important is that what we together want to learn. So what we'll do is we'll just do a quick poll on what you think. If you take away from this session, you will feel that 4 hours are effectively utilized. So what I'll do is there is a link that I'm sharing with you. You could use this link to log in, and I will just a sec. Give me a minute.
Sir, you are looking for the chat option that you want to paste the link?
Yes.
Yes. So you can find it on the middle of option or the right side.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here is a link. If all of you can log into this, besides this question, we also going to use this same link for getting some of your thoughts and reflections during our interaction. So it would be great if you could just log into this. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Now I have I hope what everyone was saying was visible to all others also.
No, sir. I think the screen was not shared. Maybe
The screen was not shared, so it wasn't visible. Okay, sorry, my mistake. I should have done that. Uh, so. Share screen. Is this
Visible.
visible?
Visible, sir. Visible.
Okay, but it's where you keying in there in your phone set is not visible, right?
Yes, sir. It wasn't. It wasn't at that point of time. It wasn't.
But now is it visible on your phones?
Now,
Yes, sir.
exactly. Yeah, it is visible, sir.
It is visible on your phones, right?
It is visible.
Okay. So even if I don't share the screen, you should be able to see the results, right? Okay. So this is what has come out. There are a lot of expectations. We'll try and adjust most of them, and some of them, if we miss out, what we'll do is we'll increase the time for Q&A, and we'll try to answer some of those that are left out during the Q&A. Okay. Or I mean, as we go, you can keep raising questions, and I'll be happy to answer. Right. So going back to the session. Sorry. Share. Okay. We'll try to emphasize more on the areas that there's interest, and we'll try to de-emphasize on areas that haven't come up in the interest areas, and make sure that we stay as relevant as possible. Now, can somebody admit people?
Yes, sir. We are doing it.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Can you see my presentation?
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. So we'll again go back to the polls. We have a few questions for the audience.
Yes, sir. We can see your presentation. Please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. And share screen. Sorry, does not be a question. Sorry, apologies. So can you see the question? Yeah.
I request everyone go to www.menti.com and use the code that is displayed above 20403933. Once you will enter this code, you will get the option to vote, and then you will see the result here.
Okay. So I think we've got significant votes by now, and the jury is out. So clearly, the audience believes that engagement activities like parties and offsites, which got started in the 90s, no longer creates employee engagement, right? And enhancing HR processes is turning out to be very high with HR interventions. So if I add those two, that's about 50%. And the other 50% is divided between leadership interventions and manager interventions. And manager interventions scoring the lowest. Okay, that's interesting. So let's see if, some of the other things. Only 37 people have voted though. I would prefer better engagement and more points of views, and rather everyone's points of view, right? So this is really fantastic. Thanks for your Thanks for your contribution. And that's really learning for all of us, right? Learning from each other. And people seem to continue to vote. But the change is kind of similar, right? So that's about 50% on HR processes and HR intervention, 10% on engagement activities, and 40% on leadership and manager intervention, where leadership is higher and managers is lower, right? With that change, we'll move to our next question. We'll move to our next question.
So you have to click on present, sir.
Yeah. So
And
why is it important?
सर और आगे जाने के लिए नीचे लेफ्ट साइड पे आप माउस लाएंगे तो एरो आ जाता है.
Oh, is it?
लेफ्ट साइड पे गेट द स्क्रीन, नीचे आइए थोड़ा और नीचे, ये हाँ.
Oh, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. I used to use polls everywhere, and I moved to Mentimeter, and
Yeah.
then hence I'm facing some challenges.
No worries.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
You can even use your keyboard, mouse front and back, and it will move.
Okay. Thank you very much. So folks, request that we very quickly respond, right? We don't have to wait for others to respond and then respond. Please respond so that we can move quickly. Otherwise, we'll end up investing a lot of time in the first part itself, and we might miss out on some of the later parts. So there seems to be an overwhelming response towards productivity. It seems that engagement does not impact attrition as much, especially I saw some of the comments that in the wake of these great signature era, etc., where people are engaged and are leaving it, that there's this seems quite obvious, and I'm highly delighted to say that it's not being seen as a great HR initiative. So there's a lot for me to learn from the audience, because yes, it should not be an HR initiative. That's what our science also shows. Otherwise, you'll have surveys and you won't have any action and you won't have engagement. So with this, let's move to the next question. So which is so important for productivity, do business leaders and managers also believe that engagement is important? So looks like it is 2/3, 1/3. I'm so happy that this has really improved. Couple of years, it was just the other way around. 1/3 said that business leaders and managers believe, and 2/3 said they don't believe. So that makes our life easy, and I can then run faster through one of our sections, but we will certainly cover that in the interest and benefit of 1/3 of our colleagues. The next question is, request you guys to please the more social groups, remuneration, perks, job satisfaction, employee expectations, salary, health, safety, comparison. Wonderful, wonderful. Promotion. I can see that we have a fair mix of Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z in the audience. Self-actualization, recognition, work-life balance, job satisfaction, work-life balance. Wow. Promotion. Wow. Culture, respect, branding, trustworthiness, recognition, work-life balance, job satisfaction, growth, sense of purpose. I can see some Gen Y, Gen Z acting there up. Thanks, folks. Thanks a lot. Now what we'll do is we'll thanks for all your inputs. It makes job security, appreciation, rewards. Yeah. Thank you. Looks nice. I'll go back to the presentation and we'll leave the Mentimeter for a while and so what we will broadly discuss is how do you create a buy-in and how whole employee engagement and the organizations have evolved in last 20 years, maybe 30, with the inclusion of Gen Y, Gen Z in the workforce. And therefore, who are the stakeholders? And in specific, we will talk of role of manager today, but we'll visit all the stakeholders and we will then take your opinion if we need to cover the other stakeholders subsequently. So the question is, again, how do you create a buy-in? Now, I hope all of you have received your workbook. And if you see the workbook, these questions are there in the workbook also. You can write your observations yourself, or what we'll do is maybe we'll do this again. And sorry. Okay. Sorry. I'll, I'm sorry. Can you see my presentation? Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
The
yeah,
presentation is
yeah.
very much visible. I think
Presentation.
people are replying that they've not received the workbook. That's what is a response in the chat. Most of the
So
places.
somebody from Core IR HR, can you please send the workbook?
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but we can see the slide which says how do you create buy-in actually.
Yeah. So thank you very much and for pointing this out. And since we still have 1/3 of the organizations where business and leaders don't believe that there is that engagement impacts or the engagement is important for business. How do we create a buy-in? So please think of the thoughts that you may have, and please write it down on in your notebook, even if you don't have the workbook yet. But yeah, let's do that. Okay, so I am assuming that we've written this down, and now we can just go back to the presentation again.
Why your screen is not visible to us?
So, how do you create a business case? So what we have been doing is we have been plotting team engagement against percentage target achieved by the team. It's done very well when there is a quantitative target. So in case of sales teams, demonstrating this is the easiest. However, we've done this for power plants using power load factor, PLF. We've done for cement plants using kiln availability in a year, because that determines the profitability of the company. And we've done this as asset utilization in a number of process manufacturing companies. We've done this as unit profitability targets in case there are a lot of BUs with profitability targets. But any quantitative measure will work. And if you can tabulate team engagement and percentage target achieved, assuming that the difficulty levels are factored into the targets, then it correlates very well. And we've seen correlations of anywhere between 0.65 to 0.8, and sometimes even 0.85. So that's how well correlated team engagement and percentage target achieved is. This is a case study from an NBFC where we have had sales team engagement measured and dealers engagement measured. And when we plotted them on the two axes, the top quadrant, the sales teams or the branches in the top quadrant were achieving 130% target. And the bottom quadrant were achieving 70% of the target. Assume if you can move these bottom quadrant to the top quadrant, won't happen immediately. You can get 85% growth, right? Now, if you look at this zone where the customers or the dealers who are distributing the NBFC products are engaged, the compulsive performers still make sure that they achieve 100% of their target. But the risk is that you might lose these guys. And if you were to lose, they will fall in the non-performing target quadrant. But if you engage them, you can move them from 100 to 130% with a 30% potential increase. Now, the worst group is this group. They're highly engaged, but they're not engaging the customers or the dealers. And therefore, the business performance is only 80%, very close to the non-performing target. Right? Now, here, when we went a little deeper, the manager said that, you know what, we can do one of the two things. Either we can get the teams to perform or we can get them engaged. So we're getting them engaged, so performance is falling. Now, this is a perceived dichotomy. There's no dichotomy in it. Engagement and performance have to be driven simultaneously. And therefore, it is lack of capability, understanding, and training of these managers that led to some of the branches in the country club. And when their capability was improved, when they understood how engagement is for performance and not the other way around, these could move up. Now imagine if something moves from 80 to 130, that's a 50-60% increase. So clearly, if you move the 70 to 100, that's really 30% increase. 100 to 130, 30% increase. From 80 to 130, about 50-60% increase. So if you move points from any quadrant to any quadrant, there's a minimum 30% increase that is possible, right? And rightly, all of you have said that engagement, the highest need for engagement is productivity improvement. And I'll come back to attrition. Just give me a moment. I'll come back to attrition. With this kind of quantitative correlation, if you were to establish in your organization, especially I'm sure the 2/3 have already done it and 1/3 have to do it. But if you do it, this works. Now let me narrate my own example here. When I joined Reliance, both people internally and externally said that either I will quit within a year or I'll get thrown out within a year. Now this is something that maybe some Reliance or ex-Reliance colleagues may be on the call and they may not know it because we never spoke about it. But now that I'm out of it and it is historical, we can talk about it. So in the first quarter of my joining, I did an employee engagement survey with one of the consulting partners, and I took CEOs and their direct reports, the leadership team of 32 businesses, and took their PBDIT and drew a correlation between the two. And the correlation turned out to be, any guesses what the correlation could have been?
Just opposite.
So the correlation was 0.86. There was a very high correlation between leadership engagement and profit before depreciation, interest, and tax. And when I sent the results to the chairman, he immediately called me, and the chairman and the two vice chairmen were sitting there, and he said, "What next?" And then rest is history. I was there for 4.5 years. Right? So if you create quantitative business case, you won the war. Then rest are battles. How do you make employee engagement a business initiative? Right? So shall we go and take your opinion again, or we can just let you do this on your workbook if you have already received it. If you have not received it, you can do it on your notebook. How do you create a business case? I mean, business case you'll create by doing this correlation, but how do you make it a business initiative? Okay, I'm a business leader. I've understood that this impacts this impact, but how do you make sure that people start acting on it? How do you make sure that business leaders and business managers take ownership? Right? Please jot down your thoughts, because going to a Mentimeter will take time, and I don't want to take more time on that. We are already a little delayed. We've passed 1 hour, and we need to make up for the last time. Okay, I'm assuming you've done that exercise for yourself. Now let's see what our research and experience shows. You need to first create a buy-in. You've done this quantitative analysis, that's fine, but is it popularly known? I mean, I did that quantitative analysis, but even the leaders did not know. Some leaders said that, you know what, there's a lot of change that is happening. I don't know what you did, but something you've done, because we never published and popularized it. However, what we did was that for each company, we did the kind of correlation that we showed you in the NBFC case study, and we convinced the CEO and their teams to take the initiative forward. So we popularized, but not the group level findings, but the company level findings. So please popularize, please socialize, please make it known, and that information will change the culture. The second is Project Lighthouse. What is Project Lighthouse? So Project Lighthouse are people in this quadrant, right? Make them the heroes. Let them, and ideally not even the managers or leaders, let their teams make a presentation on what their managers and leaders have done differently to the rest of the organization, and why and how they have been able to achieve 130% of the target. If you go back, look back, you will have lot of teams in your organization exceeding their target, right? Now, what's the third thing that you will do? You will find managers and leaders who are more amenable to these initiatives already, and pick up a few units and work with them. And now ideally you pick up units from the risk zone, right? And work with them to demonstrate this 30% growth with the improvement in employee engagement, right? Once you've demonstrated that, then make these guys who moved from the risk zone to the optimized zone as heroes, and recognize them for their efforts and achievements, and provide a platform which they can use to educate people in these two quadrants, the non-performing and country club, and more specifically country club, right? People who believe I'm sure a lot of you have heard of this cliche. I have at least heard of it a lot. Maybe things have changed in the last 3 years. I'll be very happy. That sir engagement करें कि business करें, आप बता दीजिए. That is what is either country club or non-performing zone. So, they push people hard, get their targets achieved, and then the best leave and they get into non-performing, right? Or they don't push people hard, they engage and create country club. So these people who move from risk zone to optimize can educate both these, that it's not engagement kare ki, whenever somebody came to me ki sir engagement kare ki business kare, I said obviously business karo, right? But tell me if you can sustain your business. If your team is not with you, if you just push them hard, and some companies that pushing hard could mean a lot more than just pushing hard, and you know what I'm saying, right? Listening to those kind of things, how many days, weeks, months people will stay with you? And if the better ones leave and the worst continue in your team, what will happen to your team performance? Once this education happens, once these guys who have moved from here to here have become hero, right? They have created an aspiration amongst them, and they've also educated. That education will be better than a consultant educating or an HR educating, and that these two Project Lighthouse will ensure that business leaders and business business managers start taking ownership, and then HR can sit comfortably and smile. Their role does not end there, though. We'll talk about it a little later. And then there are early adapters, there are late adapters, and there are people who will never adapt, right? So shout from the rooftop. Highlight the exits from this zone, because if people haven't adopted, and while those who have adopted will have moved these risk zone people to optimize, those who have not, some of them would have quit, and that's a time to make noise about it, that we're losing good people in so and so team and so and so team, etc., etc. Highlight it in the same forum, fora, where these guys are presenting the success, highlight the failure of the non-adopters, right? Push them to the wall, hit them hard, get them to adopt, force them to adopt, right? And that's where, you know, there's a video, time permitting, I'll share with you, or else we'll send you the link. There's a 3-minute video where leadership by the dancing guy, or you can search for it on YouTube and you'll get it. So early adopters are very few, and then rest of them start joining, and then late adopters adopt when they feel that they're left out. So make them feel that they're left out. Okay, just to give you, you know, in my video that we had sent out for the promotion, I don't know if some of you had the chance of looking at it, and or was it visible to you, etc., etc. I've said that, you know, as HR professionals, are you aspiring to be a CEO? And do you think you will never make it? Right? I can give you a lot of HR professionals who've moved from CEO to CHRO to CEO roles, but I'll give you one specific example. So there's a bank in Thailand where they had a CHRO who drove employee engagement and customer engagement like nuts, and she then was redesignated from CHRO as a chief human value chain officer, because then she was made in charge of distribution engagement, customer engagement, and branch engagement, and eventually she was elevated to the CEO's position, right? So I'll give you the bank's name. I'm forgetting. I'll give you the bank's name and even the person's name, you know, because we worked very closely with her when I was with Gallup. Now we'll move to the next part very quickly. Evolution of organization with employee engagement as Gen Y and Gen Z are taking charge of organizations. What has changed from 1990s? So I'm again, at the cost of using up some time, I'm again tempted to go back to Mentimeter. Okay, so some people have already filled it up. That, but I'll. Okay, the next question also I think has been filled up. What are the implications of changes from 1990s to now on employee engagement? So it's already available to you. I can go back to my presentation in that case. Right now, what are you seeing? Are you seeing the Mentimeter results on my screen, or are you seeing the presentation?
So we're seeing the presentation. The presentation is what is visible, which says evolution, organization, and employee engagement. Yeah.
Perfect. So in your workbook there will be a question. In your workbook there will be a question. Hello.
So where is the workbook?
There is no workbook yet.
No, sir, we have already shared in
Yeah,
the chat.
it's in our mailboxes actually. I
Yes.
think the workbook has reached
Yes.
us in the mailbox.
It's also on the mailboxes, and you can refer the chat window. We have shared there too.
Okay, Veer. Thanks.
Okay, So if you look at the workbook question, I think it should be question number 7. How are Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z different? And then there's a table there. Can you please write down, in your view, what are the differences between Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z? Right, and if you don't have quick access to the workbook, just create a table, write Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, and parameters on top, and write down what you think in your experience while working with these generations, right? To help you define Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, people born between 1965 and 79 are Gen X. 1980 to 1994 are Gen Y. 1995 onwards are Gen Z. Repeat, 65 to 79 Gen X, 80 to 94 Gen Y, and 95 onwards Gen Z. So you can take 2 minutes to write down on your workbooks, and because in your teams, in your bosses, in your subordinates, in your peers, you would have experienced different behaviors from different generations, right? So this is an assimilation of our research and World Economic Forum research. The next 3 slides, right? And research from some US universities combined, right? We've done that for all of you. And let's see if this resonates with what you have seen or not. What has changed? You know, managers completely owned the teams in 1990s, right? Now they don't own the team, they're not the boss, but they create stress-free environment and they create a performing environment for the team and help teams perform, right? From being a boss to being a coach is the transition. What is the implication on employee engagement? That managers are a critical link, but they are not the only owners, right? They can facilitate engagement and performance. They continue to be the most important, but they're not the only owners. Why? What has changed? Who are the other owners? If there are some Gen X on the call, they would recall that in early 90s, there used to be 11 to 13 levels of hierarchy, right? And now I started working with 13 levels of hierarchy when I was the 13th level, bottom of the food chain, right? I did not know anything about our leaders except their name. And a lot of my peers did not even know their name, right? So that's where we had, but where we were. We didn't know, even if we knew names, we didn't know what they think, what they look like, what they talk. If we raise a question, how will they respond? So I started my career with Hindustan Petroleum. In 3 years, once chief general manager came to our terminal, and I raised some questions. And next day, I got a transfer order to be transferred to Nepal Bihar border from Bombay. Right? Had I known that this is how this gentleman thinks or will act, I would have kept my mouth shut like everyone else. I was fortunate that my manager was quite a strong manager, and he wrote back saying that I can't be the least. I'm very critical and valuable for the operations of the terminal. I got saved, but this what could have happened, right? Now today leaders are also accessible because of the social media. the internal social media and the external social media that exists. So for example, when we were closing down our com, a lot of people were being retrenched, right? Now, Reliance Capital was recruiting people. So there was a question raised by a sales guy on one of the social media platforms, which was internal social media platform. It wasn't public, as to why can't Reliance Capital recruit from Reliance Communication. Now, we got delayed by 24 hours in responding to the question. And this question was directly addressed to the chairman. And there were 500 comments on that question. Right? So no response is worse than a bad response. And immediately I got a call from Anmol that, what are you doing? Why haven't you responded to this question? You know, chairman is Anmol Ambani is the son of the chairman. We did respond, and a lot of things got fixed. So leaders do engage or disengage. No response was creating huge amount of disengagement, right? So leaders, after leaders, what else has changed? Now, again, even those who started working in 2020, which would be like very early Gen Y and mostly still late Gen X, you might remember that we went to work, right? Now, to ensure that we perform, to ensure our learning, development, well-being, all of that was company's job. That was not our job, right? Well-being was actually not important. We didn't know words like stress. We didn't know, we didn't care about our health and all of that, right? We didn't care about our financial planning. All our financial planning was in Provident Fund and Public Provident Fund, right? So that's where we were, right? Today, what happens? We say employees own their learning and development, don't we? Now, well-being is very important to Gen Y, Gen Z, but then HR or organization can enable well-being. But physical well-being or financial well-being or social well-being, the action has to be by people, right? So from event to, so people play a critical role in their own engagement, right? So it's not just managers, leaders. Yes, they are the major owners of engagement. And I purposely did not put employees in that Mentimeter question that we had, but employees do play a significant role in their own engagement in today's context. As the group itself pointed out, there was a time when, you know, parties and offsites was considered as interventions. No longer. HR is a center of excellence in engagement. It's highly intricate science that a few understand and few others implement. And they are the biggest enablers of engagement, right? Workforce has changed. You know, in early 90s, silent generation, baby boomers were 47 and 27 years old. Silent generation, people born between 25 and 44, and baby boomers between 45 and 64. Now that is no longer true. It's mostly Gen Y, Gen Z, and some Gen X who are really in the workforce. They are like 98% of the workforce, and Gen Y, Gen Z are probably 70% of the workforce. So there's a huge shift in employee preferences and behaviors. And that all of that has led to a significant new learning on what employee engagement is all about. Also, a lot of models still exist on ENPS. How many of you practice ENPS models, Employee Net Promoter Score models? Okay, we'll come to ENPS a little later. We'll go back to what motivates Gen X, Gen Y, and Gen Z. Actually, sorry, there's a no, I'm sorry, I'm just coming out of this. Okay, fine, we'll live with this. Now, can we, before we get into this, we'll stop share. Can we just discuss, and you can put it in the comment box, why are Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z different? Why are their motivators different? Before we come to motivators, why are their motivators different? So I'll just share the slide from a different presentation. Somehow I've lost it in this presentation. I'll just share that from a different presentation. Can you see my PowerPoint screen?
Yes, visible, sir.
Fantastic. So, you know, all these three generations grew in different environment and ecosystem. So Gen X grew up in licensed Raj, right? Where everything was in short supply. Now, when I tell my younger team members, and I'm the oldest in my team, the rest of them are all under 30. And most of them are under 25. That I had to wait, or my father had to wait for his telephone connection for 7 years, right? Today, if you go to buy a SIM card and if it is not immediately activated and if it takes 1 hour, you get dissatisfied, right? And my father had to wait for his scooter, Bajaj scooter, for 11 years after booking it, right? From there to, you know, if you just happen to visit the website of any two-wheeler or four-wheeler, you get 500 calls in next 3 days, and they push you hard to buy, right? So there's a huge change in the environment that led to different expectations. So, you know, when I started in 87, if we got a job, we were highly engaged because we got a job. We were disengaged or dissatisfied because we didn't get a job, not after we got a job, right? So Gen X tend to be workaholic, and therefore, if you have a Gen X manager like me, his or her expectation would be that no, you are also workaholic, but that's not true, right? Gen X is focused on providing for family because there was so much shortage that providing for family was a big task. When we started, I was in one of the firms where we were doing a lot of work on telecom, and I used to joke that I am one of the top few experts on telecom because I know the difference between a pager and a mobile phone. And a lot of you may not know what pager is, but you can look up. And a VSAT between difference between a VSAT and a lease line, right? That was the level of awareness of telecom, and therefore we were the mobile adapters. And when we got into internet, etc. Do you know when the internet was commercially available in the world? Anybody?
1990.
1992 in US. Okay, and the other countries followed thereafter. Do you know when LinkedIn was launched?
1995.
2005. Do you know when Google search engine was launched?
2003.
1995.
1998. 1995 was Yahoo, right? So a lot of us may not know, but Yahoo preceded Google, right? So it's not always the first entrant that thrives. Sometimes it is the challenger who thrives, and the first early entrant might meet the fate of Yahoo, right? Do you know when Facebook was launched?
2004.
2008.
2008.
Right? 2004, yes, technically you're right, but 2004 was inside the university. It was not for public use. Public use was 2008 when you and I could use it, right? And do you know when social media was on mobile? Yes.
2014.
2012, bang on, Deepanvita. Thank you. Right? So that's how rapidly things have changed, right? So social media on mobile was just 10 years back, right? Facebook is just 15 years back, but we feel that it was there forever. So Gen X was an early adapter of LinkedIn and WhatsApp. Gen Y went to Facebook and Instagram, and Gen Z went to Snapchat and Instagram, right? Gen Y grew up in economic boom time. So for them, everything is idealism, right? They focused on having great experiences. They're mobile pioneers. They didn't adopt it. They were like, they're the ones who propagated it, right? Gen Z grew up during recession. Gen Z, usually the parents are Gen X. Gen Y, usually the parents are baby boomers, right? And Gen X has seen a lot of recessions. No, I mean, while baby boomers' life was tough because the opportunities were less, but if they got a job, they were in the job for next 40 years. Gen X lost jobs, changed jobs, saw 5 recessions and all of that. So Gen Z grew up during recession. So they tend to be more pragmatic. They focused on saving money. They were born with mobile. 2020, the mobiles were already there, right? So now if I tell some of my colleagues or some of you even that if I needed an information, it took me 3 days and I had to run to 3 different libraries in Delhi to find that information, or in Bombay or in Ahmedabad, right? Today you go to Google, press a few buttons and you have the information, right? So obviously the expectation of 3 generations are very different. That was the point that I wanted to make. And now we'll go back to our presentation. I'm sorry, no, I'm not getting the share screen option. Otherwise, it would have been easier.
So please try now.
So therefore, Gen X, which came out of who were brought up during, and Gen X were brought up by silent generation, right? Who were born and brought up in scarcity, etc. They're looking for compensation. They're looking for knowledge sharing, autonomy, learning, justice, right? For Gen Y, that is given. How can you exist without money, without enough money? How can you even work without autonomy? Learning is obviously justice. How can you be unjust? So Gen Y is at the next level, right? Purpose, development, they're looking for coaching, right? As against Gen Z, who looking for mentoring, right? Ongoing conversations, both of them are looking for. Gen Y, therefore, is very collaborative, very cooperative, but yet the most difficult generation to manage. Gently granted. All of you, the Gen Y who are on the call, they are not difficult, but most of the others are. Whereas Gen Z is quite competitive mindset. And for Gen Y, that's not their job, that's their life. They put their life in it, right? Whereas Gen Z is more pragmatic. They've seen their parents lose jobs, etc. They've seen those recessions. So they say, hey, you know what? It's not my life. It's a job. I'll give my best, you give me your best. So they're looking for salary, benefits. They are willing to, take ownership of their learning, growth, etc. So that's really the background of how Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z grew, who their parents were, which was silent generation, baby boomers and Gen X, and what their parents went through created the mindset and motivators of Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z. Now you can't change these. These are given, right? So what is the implication? Implication is that the models that existed in 1990s, which were developed based on the research done on silent generation and baby boomers, are no longer relevant, because you saw that I haven't put silent generation and baby boomers and what their motivators and how they grew up. But even if you look at starting Gen X who exist in the workforce to Gen Y and Gen Z, there's such a big movement of motivators, right? Imagine the research on pre-Gen X generations being pushed through Gen Y, Gen Z. Even a Gen X research will not fit the Gen Y, Gen Z, right? And I mean, we have been using these obsolete models, measuring and trying to use them to improve engagement, and then the engagement does not result in business outcomes, and therefore the business gets frustrated, and therefore there's not, in a lot of companies, while there's politically correct acceptance of engagement, but there's no leadership sponsorship or manager level ownership of engagement, right? And therefore, we need something that deals with the expectation of silent generation baby boomers, correlates with business outcomes and attrition, right? Most of these models, no, I mean, basically there are two models, the Gallup model and the Hewitt model. Everything else is copied from there. So the Gallup model believes that managers own engagement and Hewitt model believes that HR own engagement, right? And we saw a while back, we saw that there's a huge change. Managers continue to be a critical link, but they are not the only owners. Leaders and employees also own engagement. So don't beat up managers. And HR is only a center of excellence, right? They're only enablers, right? And therefore don't beat up HR at all. So we measure wrong things. Now, I think Albert Einstein or someone said that not everything that can be measured should be measured. But we end up measuring what should not be measured. And once we measure that, that becomes our KRA, and then we go after that and implement it and hope that the business will implement, and business does not see the result on performance, and therefore they lose interest and they don't implement, right? And therefore, a lot of organizations do employee engagement survey and there's no implementation, right? Now, the next question, do I have the time for the poll or I don't have? I think I have a time for poll. I can do a quick poll and share where is my poll. Okay, this is fantastic. So what are the implications for employee engagement? Some people have already filled in.
Prashant sir,
Yeah.
I think someone has raised the hand, so you can take the question if
Sure.
possible.
Please.
So I can see iPhone 7 Plus as a name, so you can unmute yourself and ask your question, please.
Sir, my question is that which generation is more contributing towards the change, to work as towards the change agent as per Dave Ulrich model?
I have read and interacted a lot with Dave Ulrich. I think if I recall his research of 2020, what he brings out is a significant change in the HR professionals' competencies 96 onwards, right? So he says in the past 25 years, there's a significant change in the HR competencies, and it's now if I say 95 to 2005, 10 years, the HR professionals who brought in a lot of change will be what? So 1995 will be late Gen X, and 2000 to 2005 will be more Gen Y, right? So it's a combination of late Gen X and early Gen Y who have brought in a lot of change in human capital space, who brought in a lot of change. Now, if I look at some of the other researchers in terms of CEOs who've been transformational change agents, they also fall in the late Gen X and early Gen Y category. So I would say that whether human capital or business leaders, change agents have been more of early Gen Y and late Gen X? Who are the business leaders today? Who are the business leaders today mostly?
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? So there's a question, I think, from Deepanvita: digital adopters versus digital natives makes way of working and adoption of tech approach very different. Is this an observation, Deepanvita, or this is?
Yes, yes, it was an observation basis your previous question that what is the difference we perceive. I mean, why there is a difference between the generations. So,
thank you very much. Thank you very much. Would you like to narrate some of your experience, how this has helped in?
so both are there in terms of help as well as probably being a bit of a reason for clash. For instance, you do have all the organizations adopting the digital way and going in for more and more automation and efficiency. So typically, the ideas in terms of where through digital means or application of more automation, some of the so-called radical ideas may come in from the Gen Zs, where the Gen Y may probably sort of discount it, saying that this doesn't seem practical, so there again the generation clash comes in, which again leads to a sort of impact on engagement, because the Gen Z workforce or employee may feel that the ideas are there, we can improve this way. However, the Gen Z or the Gen Y or the Gen X manager may not be able to understand or appreciate the point of view, while the Gen Zer may be also not appreciating the larger implications. So that is sometimes the clash or the difference of opinions that do come across, and much of it is due to the fact that one generation has been a digital native and been immersed in it from their maybe their childhood or teenage years, while the other has sort of learned it during his or her youth or working years. So that's an observation. I mean, open to
Thank you,
other
thank
views.
you, thank you, Deepanvita. So I kind of stand corrected on my response to the last question. The transformation when it comes to business and human behavior has been driven by late Gen X and early Gen Y, but the digital transformation has been driven by late Gen Y and early Gen Z. Right? No, that was Deepanvita's point, and I completely buy it. Even in our organization, it's really the late Gen Y and Gen Z who driving the digital transformation rather than me. So point well taken. Point well taken. Are there any other questions that we need to address at this stage before we
So,
move forward?
Prashant, that was a typical observation. However, many of the Gen X and Gen Y managers also, even if that is not a what should I say, very comfortable area for them, being digital adopters, have moved to the other end of the spectrum, where they do look at ways and means to digitize and automate processes, make them more efficient. Use, like for instance, if we are talking of HR only, use of more analytics tools, etc. To bring in efficiencies. But having said that, sometimes this kind of difference does arise. I mean, that's a kind of case studies you might see in your spans. That was the limited observation.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Any other questions at this stage? Hello. Any other questions at this stage?
So with your permission, I had one question on adding to a question observation, and just wanted to gather some thoughts from what, our colleague just spoke, right? Dipanvita just shared. So I've just put my thoughts on the chat, right? This brings me to the correlation around building diversity, equity, and inclusion on driving engagement, right? Do you see some of our current Aon Hewitt models or the Gallup model really covering this of how the diversity, equity, and inclusion as, a culture drives the engagement? Actually, that was one question, because we are having diverse workforce, Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, right? So
yeah, so that's the problem now with both Gallup and Aon Hewitt model. That's the problem, that these are models launched in 1992 and 94, right? Where early Gen X like me had just started working. Gen Y most of Gen X was in college, Gen Y was in school, and Gen Z was not born, right? So therefore, these models are not, they have worked on including being inclusive of baby boomers and silent generation, and maybe some amount of Gen X, right? But that's where they have significantly failed, because they have not done any further research, or they haven't come up with new engagement models. And some of the others like GPTW are even older than that, way older models. So therefore, the diversity inclusion of multi-generation or the multi-generational model does not exist, right? I don't want to be kind of using this forum, which is more the educational forum as a promotional forum, but VMatcher is the only one in the world who has created a multi-generational model, right?
Interesting.
Who have ensured the inclusiveness, who have ensured inclusiveness of Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, based on the research on these generations and their expectations. And no, actually, while we have done our own research over the last 15-20 years, but if you look at, there's a lot of research available. World Economic Forum has done a lot of research. A number of US universities have done a lot of research, but those researchers somehow have not been leveraged and have not been adopted. So that's a big issue. I agree with you, and that needs to be addressed. And I would love to see more and more companies and more and more consulting firms and more and more user organizations adopting multi-generational models, not necessarily VMatcher, any model which is multi-generational. Or if people like you want to create an internal model, why not? There's enough research available all over the place on the differences between these generations, right? There are professors who've been studying this for 30 years. No, I've been studying this for 20 years, right? So yes, you're right. That those models don't include multiple generations, but we do, and I'm sure that with all the research available in the world, models can be created.
Sure. Thanks for these intriguing questions and your insights on it. Thank you.
At this stage, I would also like to respond to one of the questions that was raised earlier in terms of the expectations. Is that people are engaged, but they're still leaving due to this Great Resignation era. Now, I agree. People are engaged and they will leave in the Great Resignation era. Point is, what's your percentage of attrition? So let's say if you had a attrition of 5%, that has gone to 15%, right? Despite people being engaged some 10% people left, right? I completely agree. The difference is that there are organizations that are not engaged, right? What is the in great resignation era, which has impacted technology the most? What is the industry average, right? Let's say if the industry average is 30-35%, is your organization at 30% or 50% or 15%? Your attrition will be significantly higher compared to where it was, but where is it compared to the industry, right? I was reading a report and I figured out and understood that the attrition levels in information technology industry in India in the last 8 months, 10 months, whatever, starting September last year, have been something like, no, now they're tapering though, have been something like 30-35%, right? And I've had clients who've been reporting 50% attrition, right? Yep. And we started working with some of these clients, and we were able to, so they were like plus 20% compared to the industry, right? And some of them have come to the industry average, which now is lower at maybe 25% instead of 35%. And some of them are below industry average, right? Now, the top and very large IT segment are not our clients, but just to give the audience a feel based on published reports, amongst the largest players, the attrition has been lower than the industry. The average amongst large players is about 22%, right? But TCS is at 12%, right? They were at 6-7% and they've gone to 12%. So the attrition is kind of doubled, right? But compared to industry average, it is about half. Okay, now that is to answer how engaged companies will be different from not so engaged companies when it comes to the Great Resignation era, right? Now, this Great Resignation era, is it a result of engagement or is it a result of disengagement, right? How many of you had lines between personal time and work hours completely blurred during pandemic, right? You started early in the morning and you never knew when you would end, right? When you were working from home. How many of you had even lines blurred between the days of the week and week extending into Saturdays, Sundays through the week, 7 days, right? So hours in a day and weeks in a week. How many of you had, this works better in a classroom situation, in a virtual situation? I'll have to go back to Mentimeter, but I don't want to take so much time on that. But a lot of people reported that these lines had blurred. And a lot of companies did work on it to limit the work hours and reduce the burnout. And a lot of companies decided to take advantage and maximize productivity, right? Now, the companies which took advantage are on the 50% attrition side, plus 20%, plus average industry average plus 20%. And the companies who took care are on industry average minus 10%, right? So that's what matters. Overall, the curve will shift. You can't stop the curve from shifting, right? But in that curve, whether you are ahead of average or behind average is something that will, no, and most of the companies that we've been working with in the high attrition spaces, we've helped them to bring down the attrition by at least 10 percentage points. And most of the companies who are working in the low attrition space, we've been able to help them bring down attrition by 4-5%. So there is a direct correlation between attrition and engagement if you use the right scales, not the wrong scales. You know, a ex-colleague of mine, she's a CHRO, called me and said, Prashant, you know what, you talk of engagement quite a lot, but my engagement is very high. I'm 9.5 on 10, but my attrition is also high, and my productivity is fairly average. And I'm getting beaten up by the business leaders. What should I do? I said, no, she was working for the European multinational. I said, which model do you use? So she said, no, this is a European model and the decision is taken by the parent. I have no control on it. I said, fantastic. So that particular company, and I don't want to name them, was using ENPS, right? Now I told her that ENPS does not work. So you're measuring wrong things and you're doing wrong things, and therefore your productivity is not improving, and therefore your attrition is not impacted, right? So that's what happens. So please measure the right things. Please do the right things, right? There's enough research available in this world freely. Use that research. You know, a lot of US universities have put all their white papers and research and case studies in the open, and we've been very effectively using that to continuously improve our model. But you could do that as well. Any other question at this stage? Well, attrition, I didn't have specific slides, and since this question was raised in the expectation before we started the session, I thought of addressing it now.
Very good morning, sir. I have asked a question regarding how can entrepreneurship or corporate entrepreneurship help the young talent to be more engaged, and whether it has some correlation with their staying back and engaging with the firm. Thank you, sir.
Absolutely, it has a very high correlation, right? Because things like empowerment, things like, you know, enriching their jobs, things like enriching their tasks, things like helping them enjoy their work have very high correlation. Now, if they're people with entrepreneurial instinct, and if we can help them with entrepreneurship or corporate entrepreneurship, etc., we can certainly leverage the key levers of enriching their jobs and empowerment and helping them do what they want, and therefore they're going to stay longer with you, and not just stay longer with you, but you know, you've helped them create an enterprise within your enterprise, and therefore you know, they just take the ownership and run with it. You don't even have to supervise them. They will deliver.
Thank you, sir. And one more related thought is, which I worked somewhat in the region, not so much, but the leaders or the bosses going away from the tell and sell model towards being coaches to the employees, specifically for young talent, Gen Z, or whatever nomenclature we may have. Your views on how effective is using coaching by leaders versus using the tell and sell authority power model for work, sir. Thank you, sir.
So challenge sell authority power model perhaps does not work for any generation. It might have worked for silent generation baby boomers, It doesn't even work for Gen X, right? It is, as you saw the research on, just a sec, let me go back. As you saw this research, even Gen X wants autonomy, right? You want to be authoritarian with them, even Gen X will be disengaged, right? Gen Y needs to be coached, whereas Gen Z want to be mentored, right? Gen X is saying, hey, give me the autonomy, give me the path, and I will do it. Don't interfere with me. I am happy. I don't need any further support. That is good enough support. Gen Y doesn't want to be told what to do. They will do it. Autonomy for them is given. They can't, Gen Y, Gen Z can't exist without autonomy. They're not asking for it. They're assuming it is there. But they're saying, don't just give me autonomy and throw me in the sea. I don't want to be in the sea. Please provide me coaches who don't tell me what to do, but help me decide what to do, right? Gen Z is saying, hey, I need mentor who can tell me what to do, who can give me feedback and be honest and transparent. Don't beat around the bush. Tell me what I have to do and I'll do it, right? So that's the difference now between these three generations, or whatever nomenclature we decide to use. Have I answered your question?
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Any other question, or for now we can move to the next? What are the aspects that you suggest be measured to check engagement? Okay, we'll come to that right away. Most current engagement surveys are based on Neon or Gallup model, NPS, loyalty index, etc., being a part of the same. Yeah, and therefore, then most of the companies, business leaders do a lip service and do not actually own it or sponsor it, right? And we'll answer that question in next few minutes, Deepanvita.
Sure. Thank you.
Yeah, and somebody said, I think everyone had those lines blurred and it still continues. And if that continues, then your great resignation era also continues, right? As long as the opportunities exist. But there's a global recession which is looming large, driven by US Fed for right reasons, because otherwise the inflation will be high. Under such circumstances, you will see continued blurring of lines and resignation is also dying down. How would facilitating young talent with corporate? Okay, this question I've already answered. And diversity, equity, inclusion, I've already answered. Can you brief with one example how to popularize employee engagement? Okay, fantastic. Change, I have answered. Digital adopters, digital natives, requirements different, expectation motivates due to transition technology. Okay, so I have to answer one question that I have left out, which is can you brief on one example how to popularize employee engagement? So, first thing is, what are CEOs paid for? I hope all of us understand that. What do the boards review them on? They are reviewed on revenues and profits, mostly, 99%, right? So the expectations that they're going to set with their teams is revenue and profit, right? Any HR initiative, let alone employee engagement, any HR initiative that does not lead to revenue or profit, or let's say if an organization is into transformation, does not lead to transformation objectives of the CEO or the board is not going to be owned by business leaders, right? So first thing is building that business case that it is helping pursue the revenue growth or profit growth or the business transformation objective, right? Once you've quantitatively established that, then as we said, you know, just a sec, let me again share this. Once you've quantified that, then those who've driven that, you know, those who've been in that high engagement, high achievement segment, right? As we discussed, get them to present, create fora for these guys to present, right? And even to create, how do you create those fora? That itself is a challenge, right? So that's where you have to buy in, create a buy-in with the CEO and the CXOs. Once they buy in, they will approve of you having such fora where you can get these high performers who created high engaged teams to present, right? You don't popularize them, let them popularize it. So it's business popularizing to business rather than HR popularizing to business. Does that make sense? Does that seem doable?
Yes, sir. Thanks for your valuable time.
Okay, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Now coming back to ENPS. Now a lot of there's a comment that no, a lot of things are still on loyalty and NPS and all of that. So I'll straight to go into okay. Let me first get your thoughts on Mentimeter. Why ENPS does not work? Right? Is this available? Is the question available on your laptops or on your
It is, sir.
mobile?
It is.
Yes, it is. It is.
So request you to put your thoughts why you think it does not work, and then I'll come back on what our research shows why it does not work. Any thoughts or no thoughts? If there are no thoughts, then I'll just go back and share our research. Okay, we will go back and share our research. Why ENPS does not work? We have a quantitative research to demonstrate this, but the findings are that unlike customer, you know, you have a mobile phone, you can ditch the mobile phone if it doesn't work next year, right? You have something else, you can ditch it in the next purchase cycle, next month, next week, next day, right? And you can change your brand that you're using 25 times in a year, you don't care, right? And if somebody asks you about that brand, you don't care, you can badmouth the brand, right? But when it comes to your job, how many times can you change your job? Can you change your job every 3 months or every 1 year, or every 2 years? Right? There's a finite number of times, and now there's a dispute on what that finite number is. So therefore, I'm saying finite number, whatever is the number. In my opinion, the finite number is somewhere between 5 to 10 jobs. You can't do more than that. Otherwise, people stop hiring you. Right? But some of the CEOs said, no, Prashant, these days 10 jobs people change in 10 years, first 10 years itself. So maybe whatever. But there's still a finite number. Beyond those numbers, then your sellability of your CV goes down, which you are all HR experts. I don't know to tell you. When you're shortlisting, do you shortlist people with too many changes? Do you trust them that they're going to stay with you? Right? So there's only finite number of times that you can change your job. So loyalty may be higher, but that may not really relate with discretionary effort, right? People's brand strength is driven from employers' brand strength. A lot of you today came to listen to me because I've worked for Gallup and I've worked for Reliance and I've worked for Aon Hewitt, right? Now my brand equity, I'm kind of harnessing from these brands. So I really, can't criticize the brands because of which I'm known. So these employers sit on your curriculum vitae, on your CV, right? And therefore you're careful in telling your colleagues, don't join this company. Because if the name of that company comes down, then your sellability is a problem. And therefore, the questions on loyalty and advocacy, even if they are positive, that doesn't mean that the person is engaged and is going to deliver the discretionary effort, or sometimes even stay, right? If he's not, now, then what? Somebody asked me that, if this is in that chat box, if these are not the relevant parameters, what are the relevant parameters? So, that there's a lot of academic research that passion drives discretionary effort. If you create a stress-free environment, that drives, if people are at peace with the organization, that drives discretionary effort. If I'm in a situation where I say, oh shit, it's Monday again, and I have to go back to that damn workplace, right? I have to go back to that damn office. Am I going to be highly productive? Now we've kind of demonstrated that quantitatively, but intuitively, am I going to be highly productive? Are you going to be highly productive? So this is our new model that we've come up with. There can be different models. I'm not saying this is the be all and end all, but as of now, this is the only multi-generational model that exists, right? I'm sure in a few years, there'll be many more that will come into being. So beyond brand ambassador or promotion or advocacy. Yeah, sorry, is there a question? Hello. Okay, beyond advocacy and loyalty, which we continue to measure, we measure discretionary effort. Just a sec. Let me use the laser pointer. Beyond advocacy and loyalty, we measure discretionary effort, we measure passion, and we measure peacefulness. Passion and peacefulness are extremely important for Gen Y and Gen Z, right? Especially Gen Y. They can't live in an environment which is not peaceful. And while Gen Z may claim that they may, but the biggest amount of reported psychological problems in the clinic of psychiatrists and psychological therapists in India, in US, are from Gen Z, right? Some of you who are dealing with that problem in your organization, especially if you have a younger organization with a lot of Gen Z and service-based organization, some of the CHROs have reported 40% psychological problems in Gen Z. So these become extremely important to be able to drive discretionary effort, right? And therefore, what we found is that the combination of this has a very high correlation of business outcome and attrition. Because people are not passionate working with you, they're constantly stressed working with you. Even if they report that they're going to be loyal, they will leave. Right? So that's where these are the behaviors that need to be measured based on our research. Right? Now, some of the research might throw up some other behaviors, but we haven't come across those yet. But these are behaviors that are outcome behaviors, right? So as HR or as leaders or managers, you can say that, hey, tomorrow morning, be a brand ambassador or be loyal to this organization or start putting in discretionary effort or be passionate, so on and so forth, right? What is driving these behaviors? So there is purpose, there is well-being, and organizational engagement like careers, like performance, like all those continue, right? But additional organizational engagement issues like stress-free environment, constant communication, transparent communication, creating customer focus, etc., are new dimensions that Gen Y, Gen Z are very excited about, right? For reasons that we've already discussed. So these are, so if your model does not have well-being, does not have purpose, does not have stress-free environment, then you have a challenge. If it is your internal model, please update it. If it is an external model, then I don't know what you can do about it, right? Ownership, we've already discussed this, is by managers, leaders, and employees. And HR is a great center of excellence and enables managers, enables leaders, and enables employees. For today's session, we focus only on managers, right? We are not talking of leaders and HR. We're not talking of employees. If you want, based on what you think we need to do, we can now have subsequent sessions on maybe one on HR and leaders and one on employees. But that's really your call, not my call. But this is the new age model, and this is the new normal when it comes to people, right? So all of us have to adopt some multi-generational model. Any questions here?
So just came across one question in mind when you say owned by employees as well, while, as behaviors, of course, execution has this carrot and stick mechanism, right? Most of the times in our action planning. But, and both works, right? Most of it from engagement drive, from an employee perspective, we look at the carrot mechanism, right? Are there some, the stick mechanism also, right? So for example, I'm wondering, with the multi-generational workforce, if that perception somewhere gets in that engagement is not my job still, right? It's a parameter for the leaders, managers, and all of that as we see the evolution, right? While we drive this as a perception across the organization with the action planning and all of that. So just wondering, sir, in your experience, what are your thoughts about putting engagement as an ownership also in a variable pay parameter or something, as a deterrent measure, that it becomes a co-ownership for everybody. So that was my question while I was reflecting on this ownership and aligning to the parameters.
So Ramanaj, wonderful question. Wonderful question. Right now, I'll answer. You have 3 components of the questions, so I'll answer one component at a time. So one is, should you use stick? Right. My response is no. Don't use the stick all the time. Right. But that doesn't mean that you will never use the stick. Right. If you do everything that you can do to engage an employee, and if he continues to be or she continues to be disengaged, what do? You got to run your business, right? Your CEO has to report profit growth and revenue growth to the board. So you cannot not deliver on that, right? So use it sparingly. Pallavi Mishra has spoken about trust issue, right? Now, I think there's enough research by US universities, because 90% of the world's research in any area gets done by US, right? That trust doesn't work. I remember this. You remember the book called The Maverick? Yeah. So I was attending the session by the author of the book, and who was talking about trust. And I asked him, this was like 20 years ago, and Semler the Maverick, Mr. Semler was conducting the session himself. And I asked him a question a couple of times, and then some others also asked him that what if we do everything that you're saying and people still do not trust us or do not become productive, right? And he would say, no, you trust them, they will certainly trust you, they will become productive, etc. But when this question got asked by 4 or 5 of us and he was still not convincing, or his responses are not convincing, his wife was sitting in the front seat in the audience. She decided to get up and took the mic and said, you know what, Semler is not telling you one thing, right? That if there is a situation where people finally do not respond to the trust and are not productive, he gets very angry. And you know what happens when a chairman of a group gets very angry on an individual, right? So even in his trust model, no trust model can work. All the research point out, no, if you at the end of it, I mean, you don't know, your first step can't be a stick, right? But at the end of it, there is a stick. There is a stick. Use it very sparingly, but if you don't use it, if you don't reprimand the wrong behaviors, the right people will start following the wrong behaviors.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Right?
Well, yeah.
So therefore, you have to do those exemplary use of stick. Don't you use it very often. I don't remember the name of the movie, but there was a movie where this villain was actually not a villain, and he had a guy with a walking stick always next to him, and he would tell he's a gangster, but a benevolent gangster, and he would tell his team that, you know what, this guy betrayed me and I've broken his leg, right? And in the end of the movie, that guy throws the stick and starts running. And then somebody asks him, No, why? How? So he says, my leg was not broken ever. I was never beaten ever. But if boss did not threaten, how will people fall in line? Right?
Yeah.
So you have to maybe create just one example. Don't use tick again and again. Maybe create one example and or two examples, whatever, very few examples to demonstrate that, hey, if you don't shape up, you'll have to ship out. Now, somebody, Pratiksha Chaudhary, is saying, considering the varying needs and expectations of different generations, how can the selected methods of employee engagement cater to them all? So, Pratiksha, that's the challenge, right? Now it's way more complex than it was in 1992. So in 1992, Gallup could launch Q12, 12 questions. Oh yeah, so Pratiksha is telling me that the movie was called Welcome. Thank you, Pratiksha. No, I'm bad at remembering names of movies or heroines of movies. Thanks a lot. And Pratiksha, going back to your question, and therefore, while we don't want to ask 200 questions, but 12 questions are insufficient, right? To cover the aspirations of multi-generational workforce, we've tried optimizing questions as far as possible, but we still at 39 questions, right? We might optimize further, but we will never get to 12 questions, right? Unless the expectations of all the generations converge, then we might, but doesn't seem so. At least, not next 20 years till Gen Y, Gen Z is there in the workforce. Maybe when Gen Y, Gen Z start phasing out, or Y phasing out, and Z and the people following Z converge, then maybe possible, but not otherwise. And hence, and I mean, if you make 200 questions, if you have so many initiatives, so many problems, so many issues, then it's not well researched. And then you're not getting anywhere with that survey result, and you're taking up too many initiatives which you can't handle, which business can't handle. And then the question will be, engagement kare ki business kare, right? Okay, so I'll just see if in this section there's any slide left. If not, then we can just break for a bio break, because the organizers are telling me time for the bio break. So, okay, so I think this section is completed, so we can go for the bio break. Is that fine? How much time we need to take the break for?
Maybe 10 minutes, okay, sir?
I'm fine with whatever all of you are fine with.
Sir, your convenience, sir.
Okay, so we'll, Shweta is saying 10 minutes and some others are saying 10 minutes. So let's go for 10 minutes and let's resume at 12:45.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Thank you. Bye.
Hi, sir. Can I have a question, please?
Sure.
Sir, I wanted to know about the project Lighthouse. If you can explain in detail, please. I really wanted to do it in my organization. Let me give you a brief. As for now, in my organization, it's more of an employee engagement activities. But then I wanted to move it for Employee Connect, like more of an Employee Connect initiatives. So if you could suggest me, I believe Lighthouse was one of them, but then apart from that, if you could suggest me a few more.
So we're going to the next section, next hour and 15 minutes is about what should managers do to improve the employee connect and employee engagement and productivity and retention, and what should HR do to enable these managers. So that part we're going to be covering in next 75 minutes or less, maybe next 60 minutes, because there's some time for I guess a commercial break and the next 60 minutes we'll cover that.
No problem, sir.
And now coming back to what is Project Lighthouse. So Project Lighthouse is that you have some best practices, some light, and some sparks in your organization, right? Which are hidden in a corner. Now, how do you bring that light, spark into the center of the organization? And put them on a tower, like a lighthouse, right? Providing direction to ships in the sea, and let the light coming from that tower direct ships, which are various teams, to the right direction, right? And help them understand, so that they're not always saying, hey, HR kuch karta nahi hai, bahut din se koi offside nahi hui. See, our research shows that you do a cake cutting, a party, the engagement is 3 days. After 3 days, that impact peters down, right? You do a offsite, the engagement is 1 week to 10 days. After 10 days, that impact peters down, right? You give undeserved higher performance ratings and higher increments or incentives. The engagement is 6 weeks. Or you don't give them good increments that they thought they deserve, the disengagement is 6 weeks, right? And then it peters off. You give an undeserved promotion, the engagement is 1 year, and then it peters off, right? Now, what is the hindsight of undue promotions or increments or performance ratings? That your high performers feel neglected. They think that no, average performance and high performance gets you similar rewards. So why should we perform? So either they stop performing and you create a mediocre organization, or they quit and go to some high performance organization, and your organization ends up retaining mediocre employees and becomes mediocre organization in any case, right? Now, coming back to Project Lighthouse, while all those metaphors and similes are fine, what do you do on the ground? You identify these teams who are doing great on engagement and creating 130% of the target achievement, right? Talk to them, what are they doing differently? Help them create a presentation, or even create a presentation for them. Because a lot of times, depending on what teams these are, if these are sales teams or engineering teams, they're not great at presentation. Create a presentation, discuss with them, understand, create a presentation, give it back to them, right? And in the next recognition session or some whatever leadership session that you have, or town hall, right? Request your leaders, get those guys on a coffee table with the leader. Let leader understand from them, CEO or whoever is the leader, how they have achieved these 130% business performance month on month, year on year, quarter on quarter, whatever. Let him be convinced. And then you go to the CEO and say, hey, in your next town hall, I want this team to present this to the rest of them, so that we have more of such teams, right? 130% performance CEO likes, because that helps him improve the performance, and that puts him in good stead in front of the board. So he will let you do that, right? So you use that town hall and whatever and just get there. No, you don't get there. Get these guys there. right? You be in the background and let them talk. So that the rest of the business teams don't see it as a HR speak. They're hearing from their colleagues who either they know that they are high performers or they don't know. Then, while you're introducing them, you've introduced them as high performing teams. You've told them that, these guys have been consistently achieving 120, 130, 140% target, right? Please, let's hear what they do to achieve this. And then let them talk. And, either the manager can talk or let the manager do 30% of the talking and let his team do 70% of the talk. Right? Now, a lot of times these guys are not good orators. So the presentation skills are wanting. So get them to rehearse in front of you, help them with words and sentences, what they have to say, and let them know. So you are the director, but you are the director, right? On the movie screen, we don't see the director. We see the actors, right? We praise the hero, heroine, but actually the work is of the director. So, so you are the director. Stay at the back end as director and let these guys do the act on the screen, right? And if you have 5, 10 such teams, and in every town hall, and you organize, if you have a coffee with CEO or some such thing, which a lot of companies have, or you can get that started, saying that, no, do you know, sir, how these guys are delivering 130%? Can I organize your meeting? And then the second team and the third team and the fourth team, and then make this a regular phenomenon, right? In your town hall, or in your leadership meet, or in your whatever meet, right? Take an existing platform, don't have to create a new platform, and find some 20 minutes for you. And that becomes Project Lighthouse. These are then Lighthouse guys, right? And then you can use technology today to create groups where people can access these guys and ask them their doubts, questions, which in a town hall they wouldn't have asked. Because there they would be worried that, their ignorance or their incompetence may show up. But one-on-one, they might be wanting to talk to these guys. So Sanjay Deshpande is saying, isn't it a good idea for HR to form CFTs? I think all HR initiatives should be through CFTs, not through HR teams, right? Because let the business perspective come in, and again, you can be the director as the center of excellence, but let these guys be the movie actors, these guys be the hero, heroines. So CFT is the only way to go. So Naina was your name, right?
Yes.
Naina, have I answered your question or I have not?
Yes, sir. You have answered. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Sir, we have an R&R going in our organization as an initiatives. That's for staff as well as associate both. So you wanted to say that I should come up with a new initiative. Maybe conversation with CEO would be good, or maybe if you can clarify that I should do it for all the functions in my organization, asking the functional head quarterly a good project where they have saved in that way.
Yeah, wherever you can quantify either the savings or the revenue growth or the profit growth, which is a combination of revenue and cost, right? Something that is quantified. See, the weakness of R&R programs is that a lot of these programs are run on qualitative parameters, right? And therefore, those who don't make it, they always have a question, why not me, right? So make it highly quantitative, and basis the quantification, just use the same forum. Because creating a new forum is going to be taxing on CEO's time, etc. It will be difficult. but use the same forum, but don't just recognize them, right? Give them the stage to act, right? I mean, don't run Oscar award, right? Run the movie also. I'm not saying don't give them Oscar, but show the movie. So the difference between your other R&R winners and these teams will be that other R&R winners don't get an opportunity to run the movie. These guys will get the opportunity to go to the dais along with their team and run their movie, which you have orchestrated already. So the movie director and the music director and the script writer have prepared them well so that, you know, they can translate their good work into a very, very, very hard-hitting presentation.
Done. Understood. Done. Thank
Right.
you.
And that will differentiate from the quantitative recognition to the qualitative recognition receivers. Don't fiddle with your existing program. Let qualitatively, you know, somebody must be nominating. So don't go for this nomination business, right? Nomination may, you will get more people who please their bosses rather than who perform, right? Go to your ERP, and from the ERP or HRMS or wherever, take out the target achievement, right? This is not through nomination. This is based on quantitative numbers which are pulled out of your ERP, your HRMS or your Salesforce or customer portal or whatever portal, wherever you have the targets and the achievements, get that out.
Understood. Right.
Right.
Thank you so much, sir. Explained very well. Thank you.
You're most welcome. Which company are you from, Naina?
Working in a tier 1 automotive company. It's Spark Minda Corporation Limited.
Okay. Okay. Mr. Rajiv Kapoor.
Good afternoon, sir. Sir, this is Parveen Saraf from ITC Hotels. We have, sir, into the hospitality sector, and we have very few, limited zones where we can, measure the metrics in the quantifying number. And we are into the guest serving industry. So how we can measure our, employees' engagement, specifically those functions which are not guest facing area.
Okay. How many hotels do you have?
Sir, we have more than 84 managed and owned hotel, and we have Fortune brand also. This is
Right.
under.
So these 84 hotels have guest occupancy. They have their
Yes, sir.
revenue. They have their profit.
Yes, sir.
Right. So across hotels, you can do the correlation.
Yes, sir.
Right, of engagement versus the revenue growth versus the profit growth in terms of percentage, because hotel and a large hotel will have higher revenue, a smaller hotel will have less revenue, but you can measure the growth, right?
Yes, sir.
The second thing that you can do is you can measure now coming back to within hotel, right?
Yes,
within hotel, I'm sure you're monitoring the guest satisfaction.
Yes, sir. We have a wow ratio. We call it wow ratio. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can correlate the guest satisfaction with the employee engagement.
Yes, sir. So my question here is like
in functions, teams, and shifts where the employees are engaged, your guest engagement should be higher. Guest satisfaction should be higher. Okay, go back to your question.
So yes, sir. So for the guest-facing department, we call it in the hospitality sector front of the house. But we have so many, our colleagues who are back of the house, like they are supporting the front of the house. associates and the employees, like HR, engineering, this housekeeping, etc. Sir, the finance. So how we can also involve them into the some how we can measure their engagement or engagement.
So I mean there are surveys available which can measure their engagement, right? If the question is how you can measure their engagement, because what matters to them will be little different from what matters to white collared, right? They're somewhat like blue collared. So there are different surveys available for these guys. So that can be measured. Now, if your question is how does this correlate with business metric? So I don't know if you've had a chance to read this book on Ritz-Carlton, right? So there are various mechanisms to measure this. Finally, all of it results in guest satisfaction. If your room is made up well, if they have done good service, blah, 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 all of that results in guest satisfaction, which results in repeat business, which results in higher share of wallet. And all that is measurable, right? Ritz-Carlton has done that, and all that is available in that book, but we can always take it offline. In the interest of time, as we are running short on time, it would be difficult to answer it comprehensively on the session.
Yeah, go to your insights. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now let the thought show the movie and give the Oscar. The how part is a very critical. Thanks. Is employee engagement a HR generalist role or the HR specialist role? Your question will be answered in next few slides, NG. It is both a HR generalist role and a specialist role. So the center of excellence is the specialist role. The implementation is the HR generalist role. Implementation support to the managers, etc. is HR generalist. Which book, Ritu? I'm a little bad at names. Just as I could not remember the name of movie Welcome, I'm unable to remember the name, but I'll find it out and then let you know. Pallavi has a question. Shoot, Pallavi. Do we need to unmute you?
Yeah. Hi, sir. How are you? Thank
Good,
you so much,
good.
first of all. Sir, actually, I deal with millennials. You know, the all people who are working in my organizations are very young. You know, maybe average age might be 24, 25 because it's just design agency. My only problem to engage, I don't know how to measure that, you know, how much they are engaged, because they are least interested to take any surveys. They are least interested to talk, you know, whenever I would like to talk to them and, you know, try to gauge. They know everything. First of all, the problem with these millennials are they know everything. You know, whatever you say, they know everything. They don't want to get involved into the discussions you are doing in terms of HR, because they feel that, oh, HR is nothing, you know, it's just that, you know, main to aata hu, I'll come on my own time and I work, I'm very good at this because it is a creative agency. So they have a very different mindset. I don't know how to gauge their engagement, but yeah, attrition is really high because after a year or two, they feel that they are exhausted. So, I mean, that's my challenge being in HR, what I'm facing right now. I don't know how to deal with that.
Yeah. So, you know, while all these industries are different, but there's a commonality also.
Yeah.
So design, law firms, consulting firms, management consulting firms, right? All of them employ a lot of these young crowds, and all of them have similar challenges.
Yeah.
Right? They are God's gift to mankind, and HR is nothing. Right? Now, where do they learn that HR is nothing? They learn from their business leaders.
Yes.
Business
Actually,
leaders believe that HR is nothing.
Yeah, and it is coming from top to down because they feel that it is just an operational work, and I don't know, can't do anything in the business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Now, it was very difficult for me to convince my bosses to spend 1 crore on doing an employee engagement survey and then using the entire team of 300 HR folks across businesses to push people to respond. First time it was very, very difficult, right? But once we quantified the impact, as I was telling you earlier, then it wasn't difficult, right? Because there were a lot of actions that happened. People saw that their feedback is benefiting them, right? If people think that their feedback is going to be useless, there's no benefit, they won't respond, right? First time it is little uphill. You have to find some leader who's little more amenable than the others, right? And make it his initiative. Don't make it an HR initiative, right? Let people listen to that leader and not to HR. They won't listen to HR. You know, it will be some time before they start listening to HR. So one kid from a law firm told me that no, HR is like, you can replace my CHRO and put up some bricks and put one spectacle on the brick and put a coat around the brick, and that's my CHRO, right? So that's the level of respect that HR enjoys, unfortunately. But it is leaders like me who are responsible, right? So if when I was in consulting firms, if I didn't respect HR, my team will not. And I didn't respect HR because HR was only doing operational work, right? It was not coming back to me with something that was going to impact my business and help me prove to my bosses that we're doing better business, right? If I am the CEO, you have to show me in good light with my bosses, with my board, right? Then only I will give you the leeway. It's uphill task in these firms. I mean, I'm not kind of minimizing the difficulty level. It is very difficult. I agree with you, but somewhere you have to have a start point. You have to find somebody who's more amenable to people initiatives, who believes, you know, when I went to the Lions, I distributed some, 200 books. People did not read. Then I downloaded the summaries of these books and circulated that. People did not read. So I got some sessions done by some of the authorities in these areas. And then some of the CEOs were more keen to work with me. So I've gone through what you're saying, but I was fortunate to be able to quantify it. And therefore, some of these softer guys fell prey to me and were happy to let me do what I wanted to do in their business. And then they became the Lighthouse, and then the rest of the organization followed, etc., etc. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll quickly move to the next section, which is our last section. And we have only 1 hour left, and of which 10 minutes is for some other presentation. So I have 50 minutes. So let me just get started. And please don't stop asking questions. Please continue to ask questions. And irrespective of the time available, not available, questions are my top priority, and we will certainly answer those questions. Just a sec. Where is my presentation gone? Okay, go back. Because it's not about what I want to tell you, it's about what you want to know. So going to the next section, which is now the doing section. I mean, this was also doing, but this was doing to build buy-in, which is most important, because till you build buy-in, till the leaders are with you, nothing will happen, right? Rest is easy part. The new role of managers is what we are going to cover, right? And in this, for the moment, please leave your role as HR professional. Please leave your role as HR professional and sorry, can you see my slide?
Yes, sir, we can.
Thank you. Thank you. So I'm saying for the moment, please don't think you are an HR professional. And if you're a people manager, don't even think that you're a people manager. Just think that you are an employee. And in your workbook or in your notebook, please write down what do you expect. Think of a time when you had an ideal manager. Amongst all the managers, the manager that you appreciate most. And if none of your managers were good, think of a hypothetical ideal manager, right? And write down what you expect of an ideal manager or what your best manager did for you. Why was he or she your best manager, right? Please write it down and let me see if I have that question on. Yeah. Okay, I have put that question on Mentimeter. So you can respond to that question, right? So where is my share? Okay. Share screen, Mentimeter. Here. Happy to receive your thoughts on your menti.com. What do you expect of your ideal manager? Anybody? Please respond. Fantastic. Better understanding the team and dividing roles and responsibilities as per the individual caliber. Sponsorship. Yeah.
That's also it's the main key to understand. That's what we believe, to understand the main key of how do you understand a team better and divide it as per the caliber of an individual. Just thought.
Sure, we'll do that. Thanks for pointing out. We'll try and cover that, and if we haven't covered in the last 10 minutes in the Q&A, please raise that and I'll address that. I will most probably cover it before that, just in case I missed it. Godlike, oh God, don't make managers gods. Gives timely feedback, appreciates good work, inclusiveness and decision, fun at times, greater understanding, giving personal care space, learning and growth opportunities, recognition and appreciation, credibility for the work, challenges to upskill, mental well-being, respecting inputs, someone who can be the lighthouse to guide when to speed up, when to slow down, catalyze learning, proper structure within team to enable collaboration. Someone who accepts new ideas, doesn't rubbish your ideas, takes accountability, responsibility, understands work-life balance and practices too, does not think they're always right, and accepts work and recognition as effort. Taking accountability, develop subordinates, ideal managers, guidance. Fantastic. Okay, we'll request you to continue typing and a plant head do not like one particular head of department, though plant head knows HOD is having all required skill sets. Out of personal liking, plant head don't try to engage that HOD. My question is how to handle this situation. We'll come back to this question. we'll come back to this question. Okay, fantastic. Thanks for your responses. That's so nice. And I think this is the, just a sec. Okay, I think this is the time we need to take a break for 10 minutes, meaning you don't take a break, I take a break for 10 minutes because I guess there is some other 10-minute presentation that is going to happen. So I hand over to Correlate HR from here, and I'll come back in 10 minutes.
Yeah, sure, sir.
Yeah. So, Mr. Veer,
Yeah, Saurabh, you can take up. Yes, please.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. This is Saurabh here. Turn on my camera. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Saurabh here from vMatter. So I and vMatter work in the product development part and also the part on the how we can improve the performance of the platform and how we can create a multi-generation model and leverage technology to use it. So in next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you that how we have leveraged technology for this vMatter model and giving you insights on the demonstration of the platform itself. Okay. With your permission, I will be sharing my screen. And please let me know once you can see the platform.
Yes, it's visible.
Perfect. Right. So this is the vMatter platform. So as Mr. Prashant has already taken through the philosophy and the framework that we follow at vMatter, where we have created this multi-generational model and focused on the 5 Ps, which are promoters, persistent, perseverance, and passionate and peaceful. So these are the 5 Ps that we have covered. And now this is one framework, but how we can use it in the actual and practical way, how we can get the insights which are important and actionable in the organization. To do that, we have developed this platform where you get the analysis, and not just the analysis on the survey results, but also some kind of a predictive analytics, which will be a lead indicator for your organizations to understand whether your employees are going to stay with the organization or whether are they going, if they are going to stay, are they likely to perform or not? So these are the burning questions which are there. And if they are not engaged, why they are not engaged? And what can be done to improve the engagement level that will reflect on the performance and the retention capabilities of the organization. So this is what happens. So the employee engagement survey that we run can be done in 80+ languages, international as well as regional. It can be done in most of the languages in India and globally, 80+ languages. And the survey can be filled on any devices, whether it's Android or smartphone or iPhone or laptop or desktop, anything, plus or tablet. Plus, this survey can be triggered through an email, through a text message as well. So by either it's your white collars employees or gray collars employees or blue collars employees, everyone can be covered in this particular platform. So now once this survey is over, this is what you get as a result. You can see that there are a number of responses. You will be able to see that how many people have responded when you have launched this survey and what is the engagement percentage. So in the engagement percentage, what we are in this demo hypothetical organization, the engagement is very low as 505 or 35% of 505. What it says that only 175 people in the organization who have responded are engaged. Rest are either nearly engaged, in the donut chart you can say, or passively or actively disengaged. So what is the difference between a passively and actively disengaged? People who are passively disengaged are not going to perform. They are looking outside for a job, but they're not actively roaming around in the organization spreading the negativity. Compared to the actively disengaged person who will be meeting their colleagues, saying that, you share my CV, I will send it to this person in this organization, or this organization have no future. Those are the people actively disengaged who will continuously spread negativity and bring down the overall morale of the organization. So this is something that needs to be addressed to understand that how many people are actively or passively or nearly engaged or engaged in the organization. So people who are engaged, when we call some person who is engaged, what we are looking into, are they showing this 5P behaviors? Are they promoter? Are they persistent? Are they perseverant? Are they passionate and are peaceful with the organization? When an employees are showing consistent behavior on 5P, then we call it as engaged. As we have said that this model, because of the help of this multi-generational model and the technology and the machine learning that we use, we are also able to predict performance. So today, engagement level is the current stage. Again, it's a lag indicator, but prediction is a lead indicator. No employee engagement model globally is capable enough to predict both performance and attrition right now. But we do, only using just survey input, we can do both prediction of performance and attrition. So in the first donut, you can see in the second donut that how many percentage of people are engaged. People, high performers, people who are good performers, average performers, and low performers. So if majority of the people are low and average performers, then definitely your quarterly objectives or your weekly objectives or monthly objectives will fail. They will fail to achieve it. So this is a concern for the employees. Sales figures normally comes when the quarter is over and it's a lag indicator. You cannot go back and change it. But what if you can, that okay, what is going to happen in next 3 months? Then you can take corrective action at the start of the quarter itself, so that your quarter or your performance is not getting impacted any further. Secondly, even the attrition. We can predict attrition with whether your team are going to be at the high risk of attrition, how many people are at the high risk or low risk, or going to be staying with the organization for a long period of time. Now, this is also very crucial because you can manage your hiring accordingly. Also, you can identify which are the critical people that you might, or critical team that you want the attrition to be low, and try to retain them by addressing their issue. So it helps both ways to save on the cost on the hiring, to get the right people at the right time, and also to retain the critical talent for the organization, so that your the performance and everything, your business is not getting impacted. And you can also see your 5P score. So as you can see, normally in the Nps model that Mr. Prashant was saying, your promoters and persistence are the two areas which are normally captured in the Nps model. But if you want to really understand what is going on in the mind of the employees, especially the current generation of people, it is important to capture all this 5. As you can see in this as well, that there is a high correlation between perseverance or discretionary effort with passionate and peaceful compared to promoters and persistent. Also, you can compare your scores with the industry in whichever industry you are part of and see that where is the growth and how you can improve that further. But tomorrow you cannot go to a team and say that you have to be passionate or peaceful. Those are the outcome behaviors which are driven by certain drivers. Now let us understand how you can understand which are the drivers which might be impacting this. And the beauty of a model and the platform is that we also have filters inbuilt, and these filters are completely customizable, and you can have n number of filters. For demo, I have only 5, but you can have 10, 20, 30 filters as well, depending on what are the areas or what are the business, a department or location or sub-department or sub-function you want to look into. And then you can select any combination of it. I can select Delhi as a location, or maybe combine it with Hyderabad or Gurugram, or just Gurugram and Delhi, and maybe look only for female. And when I click on apply, data changes accordingly, as you can see. So I can use combinations of things in this dashboard. Plus, if I just click only on Hyderabad, there are only 26 people in Hyderabad. The engagement is low, 23%. The people are not going to perform here, and people are not going to leave as well. So here, the situation is very different, where people will stay, but not going to perform. And again, as you can see, that the scores of the 5 Ps of perseverance, passionate are very low. So let us understand that now why these scores are low, what HR, leader, manager can do to correct and to improve the engagement level of Hyderabad location. So as you can see, I have moved to the second dashboard from engagement to all drivers analysis, but I don't have to go back and change my filter. It's already applied. And now I'm just continuously looking, and there is a continuous flow without an interruption to see that, okay, what is the challenge? whether they are going to be performing or not performing in engagement dashboard. And if there is a challenge, how it can be addressed at different level. So for example, HR. So in HR, I can see that, okay, what are the areas to work on? So there are all the questions here in HR. And then you can see that maybe development is the area, compensation is the area, process and belonging are the critical area for HR to work on in the Hyderabad location. So you know exactly that what action you used to take at local level. And it is not just for overall organization, but every local level you can get to know that what action or what differently needs to be done. Secondly, what leaders need to do. So whether it's business confidence or direction or purpose or people focus, what are the areas? So in people in Hyderabad don't have confidence in business, they lack direction, they don't see a sense of purpose. People focus is something which is missing. So leaders need to go to the Hyderabad, communicate the direction, build that confidence, align the purpose, and make a people-centric organization. Similarly, what are the areas that manager needs to work on? Now, feedback is one critical area. Appreciation, diversity, with all the belonging drivers, development drivers, and teamwork are critical in Hyderabad, where manager needs to really ramp up and take actions. Now, what we have also done is we have created categories of the managers. So all your managers, we have put them into different categories. How many are role models? How many are good managers or development needed managers, or how many require significant development? So this is very crucial, because as you can see, as the manager index goes up, your engagement also go up. So it's a very highly correlated element. So if you want your engagement to go up, it is very important to focus or to move all your managers to either go to role model managers. And this role model managers can also be used for your Lighthouse session. Now this role model can be identified for the Lighthouse, and then you can do your Lighthouse. They can mentor, they can guide this development of significant development managers. Also, you can align your training accordingly, because now you know that which manager requires significant training or attention, right away, some attention to improve their performance, and you can take the corrective actions depending on where they are lacking. And similarly, this can be done on well-being aspects as well. So what is the health benefit? What is, whether they are financially well or not, whether they are rejuvenating well or not. So these are the actions can be identified. The changes in the policy and the strategy can be taken. So to help that your employees are not getting burned out, or they are happy to stay with the organization for now. Similarly, you can add more modules into this particular area. So now for demo, I have only 5, like work from home, well-being, manager, leader, HR, but we have innovation, collaboration, psychological safety net, and you can also add your own custom modules as well, if there are any, to analyze the better and see how it is correlating with performance. And then you can also look into your qualitative statements, what they like, what they don't like about the organization, what are the key phrases that are coming out of from the statements, which field I have to work on. In performance category, what my employees are saying that we need to change. You can read the statement directly from here, or you can just look into the key phrases and start acting on it. Then this is a very crucial dashboard, because this is a problem that every organization faces. You do a survey, you have included maybe 10, 20, 30 questions or 50 questions. Now there are 10 low scoring areas. So I hope everyone can hear me, or is there an audio issue? Please let me know.
No, can hear you better.
Okay, right. So I will be trying to be a little louder, so that if there is an audio issue, then it's not a problem. So this is a very crucial, because what happens is when you do a survey, you have 10, 20, 30 questions or n number of questions, and then the results are out. When the results are out, you identify that there are 10 low scoring areas. But as an organization, you have limited bandwidth and time to work on. With limited resources and bandwidth, how you can optimize your resources to get the most out of your survey initiative or your employee engagement survey initiative. Now, this is where the diagnostic dashboard comes, where we identify that which are the most critical and high impact drivers for your organization according to your employees in the survey itself. Okay. So that if you take that action, the impact on your engagement and performance and retention capability will be higher compared to a low impact driver. So here in the x-axis, we are measuring what is the engagement level and how engagement impact on each driver, and the y-axis is their absolute score. So for example, if we take a particular driver here, direction, okay, so the impact is 0.52, but the score is 57%. So it's a 57% is a low score, but the impact is very high. So how we can make sure that the performance of this, or maybe purpose, 49% if we round it off is the score, and impact is 0.59. high impact driver, but low scoring. So this becomes your first and crucial element to work on, right? Improvement driver. And any changes here, any improvement here will give you a higher marginal return on your engagement compared to if the same driver was at 0.1, at 0.1 impact. Even if from 40% you move it to 80%, the marginal change and impact that you will see in your organization will be very limited. And that is the reason we are making sure identify the high impact drivers for you and then recommending action plans as well. So we diagnose the problem, we prescribe the actions as well, so that you know that what are the actions and you need to take at maybe for leadership level, or similarly you can do for managers. These are the areas where manager needs to work on, or maybe HR where HR needs to work on, or well-being areas. And for the red ones and the light blue ones, we also recommend action plans too. So for those drivers, so that you can take your actions, you know the problem, and you focus only on those areas which will get you the most return, will have the most impact on your engagement. The other part is this dashboard of location, heat map, which is a very beautiful dashboard. You might have a large organization. And when you have a large organization, it is very difficult to identify small pockets of concern. And these small pockets are actually the bottlenecks, which normally occurs. So for example, if there is a bottleneck, how I can identify it? So if I select Delhi as a filter and just Delhi is my location, okay. Now within Delhi, I'm looking at different functions. So when I look at this number, I will straight away, I can see that finance department is struggling, even in areas where my other departments are doing good in the same location. Now to identify that what are the problems, I can just have to select the drivers of leadership and see that, okay, what are the leadership actions that should be taken up in Delhi location for finance department to improve their performance and engagement level. Similarly, here when I select on manager, it is very clear that manager needs to be corrected here. Some action, some training needs to be taken up for the manager because the manager scores are very low. So similarly, this analysis can be done at any level, generation level, tenure level, and you can understand it, what are the differences at every level. And you can download your PowerPoint report directly from here. Even your unit level report, you don't have to prepare anything. Just select any location or filter and download your unit level report. A PowerPoint report with recommended action plans and diagnosing the problem will be automatically downloaded. And you can just send it to the respective HODs of those departments and they can start acting on it. And what we have also done, because we realize that action is not always at organization level. If you really want to take the initiative to a proper conclusion, it is very important to also include managers and leaders. So we have providing action plans to all your managers and leaders as well. So if Jerlyn Decker is a manager, her team score versus the overall organization scores are there, employee engagement score. Her 5P scores are compared. And also as this is a manager scorecard, we are comparing the M10 scores here and providing the action plans. So we identify the 3 critical areas for Jerlyn to work on, the individual manager, and then provide them the action plan step by step as well. So there are only 6 people who have responded to Jerlyn, and just for 6 people as well, even if there were 4, minimum we require 4 people to respond to the survey. And for that manager, we provide the complete scorecard with the action plans so that they can act on it. Similarly, we have for leaders, and we understand that it's not just about identifying certain areas to work on, but also making sure that the implementations of the actions are also happening. So to do that, we have also developed an action planning portal. So for example, if Mike Road logs into the system, he's a manager as well as leader. So all the actions that he needs to take at leadership level or manager level are auto-populated from the scorecards and the dashboard to his or her portal. When that happens, you can see that all the actions and steps are there that he needs to do with the individual employee. He can also add more action plans if he wants to, depending on which area he wants to focus on further, more than our recommended areas. And as an HR, as a CEO, as any leader of the organization or department, you can see the completion rate. You can see where are your managers are focused on. If everyone are majorly, people are focusing on appreciation recognition and not many are able to complete it, maybe they are facing some issue to complete that action plans. And that is where some training program can be arranged to enable them to complete the action plans. Similarly, you can see the completion rate of overall, or you can search for a manager or just scroll for a manager and see, and also see the action plans. So what we have also done is to complete an action plan, a manager or leader or HR needs to at least add a 50-word brief about what they have done so that the action plans are on point. Okay, and also as an HR or as a leader, you can also go back and check at what they have done. It is not just tick and done. they at least have to write a 50 words brief for the record, so that you as well can understand it, where are the areas to focus on. So, and then we have a comparator. So if you do multiple surveys in a year, or quarterly surveys or monthly surveys, depending on the frequency that you want to set, or annual surveys, you can compare your previous scores with the current scores and see where is the improvement happening, and which department, which function, which location, or within which function, which location, which functions are having improvement or not. You can just look into the data and see and take corrective actions accordingly. Okay. All right. So yeah, so this is the complete dashboard that we have developed for the HR fraternity, for the leaders, so that they're not doing the engagement survey, but also making sure that the implementations of the action plans are happening. And this is the dashboard. We have integrated it with our multi-generational model, and using machine learning now, we can also do predictive analysis and diagnostic analysis as well, and prescribe action plans to you and as well to the managers and the individual managers and the leaders as well. Yeah. So this is the vMatter platform. In case you want to know more and have a detailed demonstration of this platform, you can contact us anytime. I will be sharing my contact information with Mr. Veer, as well as you can go to our website, vwe-matter.com, and register your query, and someone from our team will definitely connect with you for a proper demonstration of the platform. Thank you for your time, and I hope this was something useful.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. It was insightful, and I believe that it is going to help our group members and the participants.
Sure. Thank you, everyone. Over to you, Mr.
Thank you, Saurabh. Saurabh is the co-founder of vMatter. Saurabh, there's a request that in the chat. Okay, you've done that. Fantastic. Thanks. Okay. So coming back to where we left, the role of manager and how do you get that started, right? So you've already created the buy-in. Now the next thing is how do you, and I have 34 minutes exactly, and I want to leave 10 minutes for Q&A. So that leaves me 24 minutes. I'll try my best to cover it as effectively as possible. And 10 minutes are very important because, so you've already shared your expectations. Some of you, others, hopefully you've written down. Now let's see what the research has to show, which can't be very different from what you're saying, because all of us are employees, right? And if the research doesn't collaborate with our experiences and expectations, then there's a problem. So it shows that the common elements across industries that has come up, and comprehensively that covers the 3 generations, is help team perform, is constant across XYZ, right? Recognize their efforts and especially outcomes. Recognize their efforts, though recognition is important to everyone. For Gen Y, it is very important. And recognition of outcomes for Gen Z, it is very important, right? Ensure that they belong. So some of you have spoken about the belonging in different ways. We're going to come to what belonging means. Develop and grow team. So that also has come out in your comments in the Mentimeter question. And teamwork and no politics. That also in different ways has come out in your expectations that you put down in the Mentimeter. Those of you who have not put down and they want to put it now, they can just add it. All your comments that you're putting there helps us in our research, because for us, it's an ongoing research. It's not a one-time thing. It's not that we've created a model and we'll forget for next 20, 30 years. No, we won't forget even for 1 or 2 years. We will constantly keep improving it. So any information that you share with me is learning for me and helps me improve. So please be kind and keep sharing information. Now coming to the next point, team performance, right? What are the key things? No, I mean, if you refer to your workbooks, there's a question that what did your ideal manager do, or what do you expect of an ideal manager on team performance to help you perform, right? So again, our research shows, from groups like yours as well as quantitative research, that setting smart goals. Somebody talked of goals in the Mentimeter survey. Now, smart goals. Please let me know exactly. And this is like very high on Gen Z, right, and equally high on Gen Y, but very high on Gen Z. That you tell me exactly what I have to achieve, I will achieve that, and you tell me what do I get in return. Is Gen Z, right? But Gen Y is you exactly, you don't give me vague things to do. Tell me exactly, and that's where smart goals. And I'm not getting into smart goals because all of you already know smart goals. But if somebody wants to know smart goals, you can write to Saurabh separately. We have a digital training program on smart goals. We can share that. But that's more meant for frontline managers who may not know what smart goals are, and you might want to train them. But in case, coming back to the next thing, it's not important to set goals, right? As somebody from ITC raised the question that what happens to my housekeeping staff, right? No, they're not just making the beds of the guest or cleaning the washroom, right? They're working towards the experience of the customer, which will lead to repeat purchase and higher share of wallet, right? So however small or insignificant their goals might seem on paper, as a manager, we have to help them understand that if they do this right, how do they help our customers and how do they help our shareholders, right? So a guy is not cleaning this toilet, he's creating a customer experience which will get him back to this hotel and help the CEO achieve his financial targets. Feed forward. So it's no longer about what you did wrong. It has to be about what you could have done better, right? Help teams learn from past and perform going forward. And the moment it is feedback that you did this wrong and no, you did that wrong and this could have been, you should have done this, etc. It's me versus you. But the moment it is helping people learn and grow and perform better, it's we, right? Maybe a lot of these things are already known, but we just put it in a framework so that you can just check box that all your managers are doing this, right? And we're going to come to that what you need to do to make sure that the managers do. Enable teams in terms of capability, tools and technology, information, and interfunctional support, right? So if we create a checklist out of this, and if each manager can check box that he's done all of this, then you're home, right? Then all the teams will start performing. I know exactly what I have to do. I know how I'm helping the company and my customers by doing what I'm doing. And you keep telling me at regular intervals, how can I do something better to improve my performance, and give me all the enablers. So my performance will go up, right? provided I'm willing to perform, that is an issue that will come later. Now, what should HR do to get this right? See, as HR, what we covered here, a lot of you already know, right? But do your managers know? And which is reflecting in the Mentimeter question response. But do your managers know? Are they trained, especially the frontline managers and the first-time managers? Are they trained? Right? Now, this 30, 60, 90 I had implemented in Reliance Group. We had about 10,000 managers and about 55,000 employees. And if we take off rolls, which were also from our off-rolling company, so from a group perspective, we have 100,000 employees. Then the managers will also go up to maybe 20,000. The thing was that, sir, मैं engagement करूँ कि business करूँ? आप इतना सब time अगर goal setting और the goal setting was done on the system. You populate the goals and you assume that the goals will be achieved, right? And appraisal was like ratings given. And I said, no, this has to change. So how do you know that even for top management, how do you know that these are the right ratings? So one CHRO said, we trust the judgment of the CEO. I said, see, I don't trust my own judgment. How can I trust the CEO's judgment? Right? There has to be a quantitative method, at least for 70% of the appraisal. So to get this right. So we launched this 30, 60, 90, 30 minutes for goal setting discussion. Everyone has to have it. 60 minutes of quarterly feedback, Q1, Q2, Q3, ideally monthly. So some companies went to monthly, but most stuck to quarterly. And 90 minutes of appraisal discussion. So I said, if you calculate on an average, if somebody has a team of managers have a team of 5 members, that is adding up to 25 hours, right? And that is 3 days, right? Now, in the 220 days that you work, if 3 days, which is barely like 1.5% of your time, you don't want to invest in your team, then you're not supposed to own it, right? So this worked for me, and this seems to be working for a lot of clients. So I hope this works for you also. So this is as far as now the next point is recognition, right? I had an exercise here, but in the interest of time, I'm skipping that exercise. But if you try to recall the best recognition you had in your career, it will turn out to be in most cases, in 80% of the cases, it will turn out to be a spot recognition by the manager, and ideally in front of the team and peers, right? Only 20% will be organization recognition programs. That does not mean that the organization recognition programs are not important. All I'm saying is you can only recognize a few people, right? But a lot of people do something good every day, every week, every month. Now, if everyone goes through the organization recognition program, it will lose its meaning. But that doesn't mean that we don't recognize these 80% people. And therefore, the manager recognition is extremely important. And then what do you do? How do you make sure? No, I mean, if you have 10,000 managers, that's very difficult. But even if you have 100 managers, it is quite difficult, right? How do you make sure that managers are recognizing their team? How does HR, somebody had a question about HR VP is responsible I mean, not responsible, but will help in engagement, or COEs? My response was that COEs will design, but HRBP will work with managers and leaders to implement. So coming back to your role on ensuring that manager recognition happens. First is, how many of you would say that when you were in school and you came back home and you had 95 marks out of 100 in some subject, how many of you say that parents patted your back and said, wow, you got 95 marks? And how many of you would say, you know, how did you leave 5%? How did you lose 5% marks? Where did you go wrong? Right? So I don't know what is happening today, but you know, when we were young, we were in school, it was about 5% we lost rather than 95% we got. So as a culture, Indian culture is not a very recognizing or appreciative culture. It is more of a critical culture. US culture is very, very recognizing, and they recognize for nothing, which is the other extreme. But no, at least good work, 95% should be recognized. Don't recognize 40%, but recognize 95%. Right? So therefore, you know, culturally these managers don't recognize. So you need to train them to recognize. You need to train them the importance of recognition. You need to show them the correlation of recognition and engagement, and correlation of engagement and business, and demonstrate how recognition will help improve team performance, right? And how should they recognize? And you should set up a process and monitoring mechanism, right? So simple things that Gallup did in good old days was that they had drops and they had buckets. So there were buckets kept on every table, and there were drops given to managers and others also of different colors. So as manager, you would put drops of certain color, which were paper labels in the shape of a drop. And as peers, you will use a different color. So how much are you getting recognized by your manager, peer, etc., is something you know, that could be monitored. Who's using how many of those drops, the manager drops and the peer drops and all of that could be monitored. Who's coming back and asking for more could be monitored. Now today, all this can be done electronically, right? Whether you add some financial incentive to it or you don't add, that's fine. Doesn't matter. Those a few rupees here and there don't make a difference to people, but getting recognized makes a difference, right? The third element is belonging, which also a lot of people talked of, empowerment, right? Now the corporate entrepreneurship and all of that, right? So is the manager finally empowering people? Is he listening? No, listening also came up, that no, my suggestions should be heard, implemented. And even if you don't implement their suggestions, tell them why these are not being implemented. By a base level, listen, right? Care for the person like a human being, right? Know your well-being and your work-life balance and all of that came up in the survey from you guys. It's all part of care. Are you caring for that person? Are you thinking that the guy is human being, right? Are you giving him space that you yourself need, right? Somebody talked of privacy and space and all that, right? So whatever you need from your manager, are you giving it to your team, right? Now, what will HR do? HR will get feedback from the team, show it to the manager that, hey, you know, this is what your team is saying on an anonymous basis, of course, through a survey, right? And then train the manager. Because if you go to the manager straight away and say, hey, you need training, he'll say, no, I don't need training. I got everything right, right? Now, for him to accept that there's a problem, you need to show a mirror. So please show the mirror. Then again, do next round of feedback and see whether this is happening or not happening, right? If it is not happening, or in certain teams it will start happening. So if you have 100, maybe 30 teams it will happen, 50 teams it will be so and so, and 30 teams it won't happen. Those 30 teams, the way it's not happening, that's where you need to start coaching the man, right? And again, complete the feedback loop. Now, all this involves both the Center of Excellence and HRP, right? The feedback loop, etc., training will be organized by Center of Excellence, but HRBP will coach the manager, right? Learn and grow. The 70-20-10, all of you know that. 10% is classroom, which HR has to do. 20% is self-learning, which employees have to do. And 70% is with the manager. He has to provide opportunity to implement, take on new responsibilities, and coach people to perform, right? Coach people to perform in those new responsibilities, right? So that's the role of manager. Again, you have to incentivize and review managers on that, right? So again, first show them the mirror, help them build capability, then incentivize and review. If they're not capable and you start reviewing them or incentivizing them or putting them in their KRAs and bonus and whatever, they're going to cheat. They're going to then threaten their teams to give positive feedback, right? And then again, feedback by teams. And again, those who are still not falling in place, coach. And that's where again HRBP comes in, right? Teamwork, ensure collaboration. So somebody talked of specific goals and unique goals, etc. So set messy goals. Don't let people step on each other's toes, right? What is messy? Mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive. So if I have a team of 5 people, I don't give the same goals to everyone. I give them different goals. All of them add to my performance. Collectively exhaustive, but no 2 people are doing the same things. Having said that, we sit down with the team and define or the manager sits down with the team and defines the interdependence or the support needed from the others, which should be built into the goals of that person, so that the others get the support and the teamwork happens, right? So don't let team members step into each other's toes, but let them build interdependencies and provide support. Biggest thing in teamwork is no politics. In case of complaints, get the 2 members, and this is very difficult. And that's where HR comes into play, right? HR should, and HRBP should facilitate this. Get the 2, disputing or warring or battling members on the table and the manager and HRBP and discuss and resolve the problem, rather than play one against the other. And discourage, sorry for typo, this is not bad biting, this is backbiting. So discourage backbiting, right? Encourage dialogue within team to avoid backbiting. And don't make up your mind. You meaning not HR, the managers. Don't make up your mind.
MECE stand for?
Hello?
MECE full form you said?
Mutually exclusive and collectively exhaustive.
Okay.
So don't give 2 team members same goals at the same time, right? Make sure that the targets are cascaded so that collectively you meeting the team goals. The team is meeting the team goals. You meaning manager. This slide is about manager, right? And managers should verify the facts before acting. A lot of people say, "Kaam ka kacha manager hai," right? Somebody goes and tells him something and he makes up his mind and start acting on it. Now that creates a fertile ground for politics. So first time managers and frontline managers fall into play, but even senior managers fall into play, right? Even sometimes CXOs fall into play. Help build personal bonds between team members. Best is, if team members are personal friends, right, then these problems will be less. then you don't have to intervene with these discussions, etc. They'll just, go for the coffee, sort it out amongst themselves. What HR should do, again, show the mirror, train and coach managers on how to do and complete the feedback loop, right? In sum, what we've learned today, hopefully, is make employee engagement a business initiative, create heroes who drive performance through engagement, choose a contemporary model to measure and act, don't measure wrong things and don't act on wrong things, enable managers to help their teams to perform, recognize, create a sense of belonging, and support learning and growth, encourage teamwork and discourage politics, right? So that, and you got these presentations, these are copyright material from vMatter, so please use it, use your discretion to share. We don't want this to go to our competition. Other than that, you can share whoever you want to share, right? So that is all from me, and it is 13:50. So I'm leaving 10 minutes for Q&A and for Quora HRIR to conclude.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking the workshop. I believe that people has benefited from it. I would request everyone, if you have any question, just raise your hand so that I can take your name and you can ask question to the sir directly. Yeah, Ramanuj, go ahead, please.
Yeah, so I was just pondering on some of these thoughts of the recognition which you were telling, Prashant sir, and one of these questions always bother me, that on the Gallup, which is the Q4, recognition in last 7 days. So just wondering what would be the hypothesis, and as you come from all of these organizations, having experience of the various organizations and their practices, what are your thoughts on this as a part of the Q12 question, the Q4?
So see that I've learned everything from Gallup and on Hewitt, so I am not criticizing them, but maybe since their research is based on baby boomers and silent generation, maybe for them it was important that they are recognized every 7 days, and last 7 days recognition was important. I'm saying, why last 7 days? Why not yesterday? Why not every day? Why not every hour? So I think we shouldn't define the time period. There's also in that Q4, there's another phrase which gets ignored. In the last 7 days, I am recognized for the good work that I have done, right? The good work that I have done, neither the respondent reads, nor the manager reads, nor the leader reads. Everyone reads last 7 days.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the expectation was that every 7 days at least you'll do some good work and therefore you'll get recognized. But the way that question has been framed, that message does not go through. And hence, I believe that the time period should be taken off. And if I'm doing good work every hour or every day or every week or every month or every quarter, that should determine how frequently I'm getting recognized.
So thanks for your perspective.
Any other question?
Sir, you can take up the question from the chat box itself.
Okay, I'll do that. Are these employee engagement surveys customized to Indian context? So the ones that are global, they are certainly not customized to Indian context, but some of them which have been developed in India are certainly customized to Indian context. And for example, vMatcher originally was created for India, so it was completely customized to Indian context. And then as we started going global, we created flexibility in the model, and we have customized it to different geographies that we are operating. But yes, I mean, if you go to the global players coming from US or Europe, it's like one size fits all. Okay, is there any other question that I'm missing out, which is there in the chat box? And what are your thoughts on Gallup's tutorial questions? Q4, okay, that I have responded to. Please use earphones. Otherwise, okay.
No, sir, I think you have already covered all the questions. So we can conclude this session. Regarding the certificate, the HRCI recertification credit, some of people has paid the amount and some not, because of there is an issue in the payment link. So we are going to send a new link to all the participants, those who want to have the certificate. You have to pay, and then we will issue the certificate and the HRCI recertification credit.
And how much do they have to pay?
499 rupees.
Okay.
Indian rupees.
Okay.
Yes, I think, sir, before we conclude, I think again one question. I'm not sure the name. Just say NG it is coming on my screen, and R. Just a second. Organizational network analysis versus employee engagement survey. Which one is more effective?
So ONA is designed for a specific one component of employee engagement, right? ONA is designed for collaboration, right? Which is one of the many components of engagement. It only works on letting the organization know which teams are collaborating, which teams are not collaborating, where are the silos being created, right? So that is that's so, you know, amongst various things, if you have a collaboration problem that has come out in your employee engagement survey, then you can use ONA for the implementation of it or addressing that issue.
Thank you, sir. With this, we can conclude this session. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward for more such sessions where we will be taking the perspective of employee side. Like today, we have covered only the manager side of it. So maybe in future, if I'll take a survey within the group, and we will definitely have such more workshop which refers to the employee side and the HR side and the business side. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you everyone for joining.
Thanks a lot. I learned a lot from all of you, and from Core HRIR in the process of designing and developing this workshop, and today from all the participants. And we are highly obliged, and we'll be happy to interact and address any questions even beyond the workshop if you have one. In the presentation, you have my email ID as well as my phone number.
Thank you so much, sir. One more information that the people, and especially the Core HRIR group members, if you wish to participate or use the vMatter survey as a sample, so we would be happy to help you in that. The basic, the reporting part and the survey is complimentary, limited to some number of employees, and post on that you can discuss with the vMatter team, and then you can take up. Thank you so much.